Chapter 775. If the demon race had obtained the Zhouxing map back then, the outcome of the battle between the liches and the demons would probably have been different. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Fellow Daoist Tai, you're too arrogant. Even if you join forces with Di Jun, you won't be able to fight me in the boundless starry sky, let alone you alone. Tai's fighting spirit was burning. He wanted to fight with Feng Zichen, but Feng Zichen wasn't in the mood to fight with him. He only wanted to end the battle quickly. He had already come to the boundless starry sky, and he still wanted to have a fair fight with him. Wasn't this a joke? If he didn't use his advantage, what was the point of having it? Not good. Hearing Feng Zichen's words, Tai knew that something was wrong and was about to turn around and leave the boundless starry sky. However, it was already over. After Feng Zichen finished speaking, he directly made his move. Galactic Cosmic Light Array. Rise. Rumble. Amidst the shining stars, a vast and boundless galaxy appeared, roaring and sweeping toward Tai. At the same time, the cosmic light flashed, connecting heaven and earth. Accompanied by the resplendent galaxy, it swept toward Tai. Bell of Chaos, rise. Seeing that Feng Zichen had used his ultimate move as soon as he attacked, Tai didn't hold back. He raised the Bell of Chaos and activated its power with all his might. Immediately, on the Bell of Chaos, earth, fire, water, and wind surged endlessly. The power of yin and yang boiled endlessly, and the innate five elements were restless. At a certain moment, there was a loud sound of a bell ringing. In an instant, yin and yang disintegrated, earth, fire, water, and wind collapsed, and the power of the five elements shattered. Everything returned to chaos, evolving into an endless tide of chaos that wanted to destroy everything. Boom! The Bell of Chaos vibrated, and the vast and boundless chaos aura surged, colliding fiercely with the galactic cosmic light that surged over. In the next moment, with a boom, the galaxy exploded, surging with silver light that filled the sky. The cosmic light shattered, and endless light burst out, illuminating the entire boundless starry sky. At the same time, the tide of chaos rolled back. With a mighty momentum, it wrapped around the Bell of Chaos and retreated, drowning Donghuang Tai. Kill! Seeing that Tai was drowned by the chaos tide, Feng Zichen did not show any mercy. He activated the Zhouxing painting, and with the boundless power of the stars, he charged directly at Tai, who was resisting the impact of the chaos tide with all his might. At that moment, Feng Zichen's strike was at least comparable to a 10th heavenly layer chaos primordial chaos primordial chaos primordial chaos primordial chaos, or even stronger. Boom! Feng Zichen's attack caused the entire boundless starry sky to tremble and rumble. This wasn't out of fear, but rather excitement. They were gathering their own power and adding it to Feng Zichen's attack. From the moment Feng Zichen started to attack the Eastern Emperor Tai, the power of his attack had been increasing. When he rushed in front of Tai and attacked him, Feng Zichen was not very clear about how powerful this attack was. He only knew that the power of this attack was somewhat beyond his control. If he didn't blast it out, this force would go out of control and explode in his hands. He would hurt himself before he could hurt the enemy. Rumble! Without hesitation, Feng Zichen came to Tai's side and blasted the attack out. Seeing Feng Zichen coming, Tai, who was resisting the impact of the chaos tide, knew that it was too late to counterattack. Therefore, Tai made a prompt decision. He forcefully gathered a trace of magic power and placed the Bell of Chaos in front of him, trying to block Feng Zichen's attack. Then with a boom, the attack slammed into the Bell of Chaos. Under Tai's incredulous gaze, it directly pierced through the Bell of Chaos and blasted into his body. In an instant, Tai's body was drowned by terrifying waves of energy. He began to slowly disintegrate and shatter until he completely died. Even at the last moment, Tai's eyes were still filled with deep shock and disbelief. He couldn't understand what kind of power could pierce through the Bell of Chaos. Tisk! It really isn't the main body. Tai isn't a brute. Looking at the place where Tai died, Feng Zichen casually clicked his tongue. The one who was killed by him wasn't the real Donghuang Tai, but an incarnation of Tai. If Feng Zichen really had the ability to kill Donghuang Tai with one strike, then why would he plan all day? He could just carry Hongmeng Daozhong and go to Kunlun Mountain to fight the 5 saints to the death. At that time, he would punch the 3 pure ones and kick Zhuan Ti. He would be invincible. Naturally, he would do whatever he said. It was a pity that Feng Zichen didn't have the ability. If he really rushed to Kunlun Mountain to fight the five saints to the death, not to mention winning, he might not even be able to come back in one piece. Boom, when everything calmed down, the place where Dong Huang Tai died had already disappeared. Only a ball of bright congenital origin was left. That congenital origin was what Tai had obtained from Di Jun's backup not long ago. Feng Zichen was very familiar with it because he had it too. It seemed that Tai had refined this ball of congenital origin into an incarnation to test the depths of the boundless starry sky for him. After so many years, the boundless starry sky had long been managed by Feng Zichen. Tai wasn't completely confident that he could travel back and forth from the boundless starry sky. Therefore, he took the opportunity when Dong Huang Gong refined the sun star to send an incarnation to test the depths of the boundless starry sky. It was also because Tai was cautious that he didn't dare to come with his real body. Otherwise, Feng Zichen would have thought of a way to make Tai stay in the boundless starry sky, even if he had to use all the defenses of the boundless starry sky. After all, Tai's existence was too great a threat to the boundless starry sky. As long as he didn't die, the sun star wouldn't be at peace. At this time, Feng Zichen even thought of destroying the sun star and reshaping it once. In this way, the connection between Di Jun's Tai and the sun star would be completely cut off. This plan was really crazy. Feng Zichen only thought about it and didn't dare to put it into action. Because he couldn't block Panga's left eye. If he angered Panga's left eye when he destroyed the sun star and gave him a ruthless blow, Feng Zichen would be wronged. Even if he didn't die, he would be half crippled. Moreover, even if Panga's left eye didn't attack Feng Zichen, he wasn't confident that he could reshape a sun star that was exactly the same as before after destroying the sun star. It was too difficult. It was somewhat beyond Feng Zichen's ability. He could reshape Zhouxing, but he couldn't reshape the sun star. After all, the sun star was different from Zhouxing. It was the foundation of the primordial world and couldn't be touched. Therefore, the idea of destroying the sun star could only be thought about and couldn't be put into practice. However, don't think that Feng Zichen couldn't do anything to the sun star just because of this. He already had a plan to deal with the sun star. Once he succeeded, he would definitely be able to cut off the connection between the sun star and Di Jun's Tai. And the key to this plan was Dong Wang Kung and Panga's god. Feng Zichen wanted to use the power of Panga's god to promote the sun star. After the sun star was promoted, Di Jun and Tai, who were no longer on the sun star, would definitely be affected. Their connection with the sun star would be further weakened. At this time, Dong Wang Kung, who was in charge of the sun star, would definitely receive the greatest benefits when the sun star was promoted. It was uncertain whether he could break through to the primordial chaos realm. However, his position in the sun star's heart would definitely surpass that of Di Jun's Tai. Just like that, with the opportunity to strengthen the sun star, Feng Zichen raised Dong Wang Kung's position in the sun star's heart step by step, suppressing Di Jun's Tai in one fell swoop. In the end, he would completely replace them. In this way, the sun star would not have to worry. This was the strategy of exchanging birds in the cage. Although this method would take a long time, it was safe. Even if Tai discovered it, he would not be able to stop it. Could he stop the sun star from promoting? In this way, wouldn't he be falling into Feng Zichen's trap? He did not need to do anything. The sun star would naturally hate Tai. No. This plan was not without flaws. That was Dong Wang Kung. If Tai thought of a way to kill Dong Wang Kung and resurrect the real Dong Wang Kung, then Feng Zichen's plan would fail. Therefore, nothing could happen to Dong Wang Kung. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen made a decision. For his grand plan, he could only wrong Dong Wang Kung. In the future, he would stay in seclusion in the Sun God Temple. There, no one could hurt him. Sigh, poor Dong Wang Kung. He had just been born and had yet to see the outside world, but he had already been destined to become the #1 otaku in the primordial world. It was quite tragic. Sigh. While sighing for Dong Wang Kung, Feng Zichen returned to the Ziwei star. As for the innate origin left behind by the Dong Huang Tai's incarnation after its death, Feng Zichen did not even look at it. Because there was no need. How could the Dong Huang Tai leave the innate origin to him and help his enemy? The moment before he died, the power contained in the innate origin had been exhausted by Tai. In other words, the innate origin left behind by Tai was just an empty shell. There was no power in it at all. Not long after Feng Zichen left, a breeze blew past, and the innate origin dissipated with the wind. So powerful. After so many years, the boundless starry sky has been managed to become so powerful. With that kind of power, other than the Tao ancestor, no one in the primordial world can match it. Moreover, this should not be the limit of Ziwei the Great. According to my feeling, there should be an even more powerful force hidden in the boundless starry sky. The strength of that force gave me the feeling that I was facing the Tao ancestor. It had the ability to kill me. Somewhere in the primordial world, the Donghuang Tai opened his eyes and recalled what he had seen in the boundless starry sky. He could not help but feel a sense of lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, he had not been careless. He had not personally gone to the boundless starry sky. Instead, he had sent his incarnation. Otherwise, he would not have been able to return today. In the boundless starry sky, Ziwei the Great was an invincible existence. This was Tai's most intuitive feeling. If Tao ancestor Hongjun went, Tai was not very sure if he could defeat Ziwei the Great. However, he knew that if he went, Ziwei the Great would really have the ability to kill him if he really did not care about anything. In the future, if he fought with Ziwei the Great, he must not fight in the boundless starry sky. After coming back to his senses, the Donghuang Tai secretly made up his mind. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed. During these 1,000 years, many things had happened in the primordial world. Many of them were quite dreamy. For example, the Donghuang Tai raised an army and sent troops to attack the North Sea Demon Clan. He wanted to offer the head of Patriarch Kuanping as a sacrifice to the heavens. He wanted to comfort the souls of the ancient demons who had died because of his escape in the battle between the liches and demons. Donghuang Tai personally led the troops. The remnants of the ancient demon clan changed their decadent state. Their spirit and appearance could be said to have been renewed. Their strength had increased by more than several times. Although the North Sea Demon Clan was powerful, when they heard that they were going to fight Donghuang Tai, they were already afraid before the battle even started. Being afraid before the battle was a taboo for military strategists. The North Sea Demon Clan's performance showed that they were definitely not a match for the remnants of the ancient Demon Clan whose strength had increased by several times. Almost as soon as they came into contact with each other, the North Sea Demon Clan was beaten to a pulp. The North Sea Demon Clan was no match for the remnants of the ancient Demon Clan. Patriarch Kuanping was even less of a match for Donghuang Tai. In just one exchange, Kuanping old ancestor was knocked down by Tai. Just as Patriarch Kuanping was about to die in the hands of Donghuang Tai, a magical scene happened. As the mortal enemy of the Demon Clan, Goddess Hutu actually defeated Patriarch Kuanping. This scene really made many people's jaws drop in shock. It was unknown what price the Kuanping old ancestor had paid to get the Lady of Earth to help him. For a moment, everyone's imagination ran wild. With Goddess Hutu's help, Patriarch Kuanping's crisis was resolved except for being in an awkward situation. Furthermore, with the help of the witch race, the North Sea Demon Clan also had the ability to fight against the remnants of the ancient Demon Clan. Since the Demon Clan was so lively, the Human Clan was naturally not bad either. In fact, they were even more chaotic than the Demon Clan. Feng Zichen still underestimated the attraction of the position of the Human Emperor. Other than the pawns planted by the Three Pure Ones, there were actually many people from other clans who used secret techniques to join the Human Clan at all costs to fight for the position of the Human Emperor. Feng Zichen could only shake his head helplessly towards these opportunistic people. He arranged a miserable ending for them and let them go early. Of course, their physical bodies were not wasted at all. They were all integrated into the new god realm and became resources for its advancement. After that, it was the battle between the Human Clan and the reincarnations of the ancient powerhouses. On the eve of the Millennium Battle, the Human Clan relied on the advantage of having the upper hand to kill many reincarnations of the ancient powerhouses. However, these ancient powerhouses were not fools. After being ambushed many times, they gradually figured out that their identities had been exposed. Although they didn't know what method the humans used to discover their identities, there was no doubt that their identities had been exposed. Otherwise, the Human Clan's powerhouses would not have been able to determine their identities so accurately. Since their identities had been exposed, there was no need to hide anymore. The reincarnations of the ancient powerhouses all revealed their trump cards and fought with the Human Clan's powerhouses. When some of the ancient powerhouses revealed their trump cards, they were surprised to find that the legacy of their previous lives had disappeared without a trace. Chapter 776. There were even some who were ambushed when they were opening the relics of their previous lives. Not only did they lose their magic treasures, they even lost their lives. Of course, this was the work of the heroic spirits of the human race. As the war intensified, they joined the fray to seek the opportunity of reincarnation of the ancient experts. One had planned for a long time while the other was caught off guard. The latter was at a disadvantage. Under the circumstances where the heroic spirits of the human race were unprepared, the reincarnations of the ancient experts suffered heavy losses. Only 10% of them managed to retrieve the relics of their previous lives. Of the remaining 90%, 60% returned empty-handed while 30% died in the hands of the heroic spirits of the human race and fell into eternal slumber. This was the result of Feng Zichen asking the heroic spirits of the human race to hold back. If not, the number of reincarnations of the ancient experts would not be limited to just these few. Feng Zichen was still counting on the reincarnations of the ancient experts to help Dong Wanggong and ancestor Hong Yun to ascend to the throne. How could he kill all of them? If they were all dead, Dong Wanggong and ancestor Hong Yun would become generals without an army. Then, what was the point of acting in the future? Even though Feng Zichen purposely held back, the reincarnations of the ancient experts suffered heavy losses after being stabbed in the back twice. In total, 40% of the people had died in the two attacks. Before the war even began, 40% of them had died. This was obviously not a good sign. However, now that things had come to this, it was either you die or I die. They did not care too much and gave their all to fight against the human race for the seal of the God City. After 1,000 years of war, the situation of the human race gradually stabilized. Out of the 365 God cities of the human race, 200 of them were still under the control of the human race. As for the remaining 165 God cities, they were taken over by the reincarnations of the ancient experts. Of course, the reason why they were able to take over so many God cities of the human race was because Feng Zichen purposely went easy on them. However, in order to take over these God cities, the reincarnations of the ancient experts paid a huge price. Originally, there were only 60% of them left, but now, there was only 30% left. In other words, half of the ancient experts had been reincarnated during the battle for the God City. Their blood had been spilled on the battlefield, and they had become nutrients for the new God realm. The ancient powerhouses had paid such a huge price, but the human race had also suffered some losses. The 165 divine cities had been their greatest loss. In addition, more than 50% of the human cultivators had their cultivation levels decreased. This meant that they had all died at the hands of ancient powerhouses. However, while there were those whose cultivation levels fell, there were also those whose cultivation levels increased. Among the human race, there were many clansmen who performed outstandingly. In this battle they obtained a lot of benefits. Not only did their strength increase, but several of them also obtained fragments of the human sovereign karmic rank. It was estimated that if he worked a little harder, he would be able to collect all 9 fragments of the human sovereign karmic rank and possess the power of the Daluo Taoist priests. And these people were Feng Zichen's main targets. Being able to obtain fragments of the human sovereign karmic rank meant that they all had the potential to become a human sovereign in the future. Even if they couldn't become a human sovereign in the end, with a little effort, they could at least become Daluo Taoist priests and become the mainstay of the human race. Something's wrong. The aura of a chaos demon god? A chaos demon god has sneaked into the human race. At a certain moment, Feng Zichen, who was observing the situation of the human race, suddenly found something wrong. He actually felt the aura of a chaos demon god in the human race's territory. Although the aura of a demon god flashed and disappeared, Feng Zichen was very familiar with the chaos demon god. He himself was about to transform into a chaos demon god. Therefore, nothing about the chaos fiend god could escape his perception. The appearance of the aura couldn't be his illusion. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen was a little nervous. The aura of a chaos demon god in the human race's territory was not a small matter. It meant that a chaos demon god had his eyes on the human race. This was not good news for the human race. The 5 saints had their eyes on the human race, and now the chaos demon god had his eyes on the human race. There were wolves in front and tigers behind. This situation was very unfavorable for the human race. If they were not careful, they would be in danger of being overturned. Originally, dealing with the 5 saints was enough to give Feng Zichen a headache. With the addition of the chaos demon god, he was forced to continue to expose his trump card. A tall tree attracts the wind. As for the arrival of the Chaos Demon God, Feng Zichen didn't think it was the three pure ones. They wouldn't do that, and the Chaos Demon God disdained to cooperate with the three pure ones of Pangu. The Chaos Demon God and the Pangu were natural enemies. If they really met, they would fight on the spot and start a life-and-death duel, not to mention drinking tea and talking about business. Stop dreaming. As for why the Chaos Demon God had his eyes on the human race, Feng Zichen had a rough idea. It was nothing more than a tall tree attracting the wind. At present, the human race was the largest force in the untainted land. In addition, it was in a period of civil strife. If the Chaos Demon God wanted to make trouble in the untainted land, he would certainly not let go of this opportunity. It was not strange that he had his eyes on the human race. However, no matter why the Chaos Demon God had his eyes on the human race, Feng Zichen had to find him. If he didn't find him, the Chaos Demon God hiding among the human race would be like an unpredictable bomb that would explode at any time and give Feng Zichen a huge surprise. Was the Chaos Demon God hiding very well? It didn't matter. Feng Zichen had plenty of time recently. He could check the human race's territory one by one. He didn't believe that he couldn't find the Chaos Demon God after turning the entire human race upside down. Dong Wang Gong and ancestor Hong Yun hid so well in the human race and even had the cover of a sage. However, they were still found by Feng Zichen, not to mention the Chaos Demon God. This was the untainted land, not the realm sea. It was Feng Zichen's home ground, not the Chaos Demon God's. If Feng Zichen could still let the Chaos Demon God slip away under his nose when he had the home ground advantage, he would have set up the human race for so many years in vain. He might as well abdicate as soon as possible. Rumble! Vast divine thoughts gushed out of Feng Zichen's body. Together with the Pagoda of Luck and the black-yellow Pagoda of Heaven and Earth, they began to scan the human race's territory inch by inch. At the same time, the torch flame of the human race's luck was also trembling and resonating with all the luck of the human race. Once a special luck appeared, it would definitely be sensed by Feng Zichen. In this way, 100 years had passed. Feng Zichen's plan to explore the human race's territory was only half completed. It was only half that he didn't find any abnormalities. In other words, the Chaos Demon God wasn't hiding there and he had to continue to explore. However, there was no need to continue. That was because Feng Zichen had roughly determined the identity of the Chaos Demon God. He didn't discover it, but the Chaos Demon God took the initiative to reveal his identity. During the 100 years when Feng Zichen was searching for the Chaos Demon God, another peerless genius appeared in the human race. His talent couldn't be described as peerless. He wasn't weaker than the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors when they were young. He might even be better. Just how outstanding was this person? He was an existence that defied common sense. He called himself God and was born in an ordinary village. However, with such a background, this country boy who called himself God reached the realm of the Daluo Taoist priests in only 100 years. 100 years, or even less than 100 years, this child reached the realm of the Daluo Taoist priests. It was really terrifying. Wasn't this telling others that there was something wrong with him? Even if Feng Zichen reincarnated and recultivated now, he wouldn't be able to reach the realm of the Daluo Taoist priests in 100 years. It would take at least 1,000 years. It didn't matter about the realm or magic power, but it would take 1,000 years just to polish a body of the Daluo Taoist priests. This god was undoubtedly the Chaos Demon God. Only the Chaos Demon gods, who had died many times and were experienced enough to use the Chaos origin to create all things, could have such an ability. In the past 100 years, deity had not only been practicing. He had also pulled together a large force and joined the fight for the imperial jade seal of the divine cities. He had seized control of more than 40 divine cities from the hands of the reincarnated experts of antiquity times. At the same time, he also took away the control of more than 10 divine cities from the human tribe. At this time, Feng Zichen almost figured out the purpose of this Chaos Demon God. He wanted to fight for the throne of the human emperor. That was really good. Feng Zichen was full of praise for the Chaos Demon God's idea. If he really succeeded, this Chaos Demon God would have completely penetrated into the untainted land and become an important figure. At that time, no matter what plan he had, he could carry it out calmly. It had to be said that this Chaos Demon God's plan was perfect. If he had time to arrange it calmly and had started to plan it from tens of thousands of years ago, he might really succeed. But now, he was still too impatient. Wasn't it obvious that he was telling others that there was something wrong with him by becoming the Daluo Taoist priests in 100 years? Anyone would doubt him, let alone the suspicious Feng Zichen. Spying on him with the mark of the Great Way, Feng Zichen really found the aura of chaos on him. He was undoubtedly the Chaos Demon God. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen was about to suppress him. Chaos Demon God, of course, should be killed. In particular, this one was so arrogant that he couldn't wait for the whole world to know his identity. Therefore, he couldn't be left alive. But at the moment of taking action, Feng Zichen hesitated. He felt that something was wrong. This Chaos Demon God didn't look like a fool. Why did he behave so unwisely? It seemed that he deliberately let others discover his identity. He always felt that he was hiding something. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen was not in a hurry to take action against him. Instead, he continued to investigate in the human clan territory. He always felt that there was more than one Chaos Demon God hiding in the human clan. Soon, Feng Zichen found that something was wrong. He sensed a trace of the aura of the Chaos Demon God in an ordinary human clan teenager. And the aura of the Chaos Demon God was the one that Feng Zichen had sensed earlier. Sure enough, there is something wrong. After realizing this, Feng Zichen didn't make it public. Instead, he continued to investigate. It wasn't until they had thoroughly checked the entire human tribe's territory and found no more problems that they turned their attention to the ordinary human youth. No, he was not ordinary. He was the real Chaos Demon God hiding in the human clan. The guy outside who had a good performance was just a target for him to attract the attention of outsiders and conceal his existence. His aura accidentally leaked and attracted the attention of the human emperor. In order to prevent his identity from being exposed, the Chaos Demon God immediately arranged a fake body to attract everyone's attention. He continued to disguise himself and stayed in the human clan to carry out his plan. To be honest, this method was not very clever. However, it was such a simple method that almost fooled Feng Zichen. It had to be said that this method caught Feng Zichen's mistake in thinking. Who would have thought that the Chaos Demon God would use such a simple method to conceal his tracks? Sure enough, the simplest method was often the best method. Alas! Feng Zichen sighed. He suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the Chaos Demon God. And the Chaos Demon God was obviously prepared for this. Sure enough, I was discovered? Seeing Feng Zichen stretch out his hand to grab him, the Chaos Demon God didn't resist. He just smiled bitterly and then his body slowly dissipated. He had transformed into Tao. He was just a reincarnated body and was no match for the human emperor. In addition, he was in the territory of the human clan, so he was even less of a match for the human emperor. Knowing that he was no match for the human emperor, he didn't want to be humiliated by the human emperor. Therefore, transforming into Tao was the best choice for the Chaos Demon God. Rumble! Feng Zichen stretched out his hand and grabbed nothing. Humph, you run fast. The Chaos Demon God wanted to transform into Tao. Feng Zichen couldn't stop him. He could only snort and withdraw his hand. As this Chaos Fiend God transformed into the Tao, the fake body he had left behind in the outside world also vanished into thin air. In an instant, more than 60 divine cities of the human clan lost their owners at the same time. Dazzling divine light soared into the sky and turned into more than 60 imperial seals, slowly floating in the air. What's going on? Why did the god fall without any warning? Seeing the fall of the god, many people were shocked. However, many people felt that this was their chance to sneak into the divine cities to seize the imperial seals. A chaotic battle broke out. At the same time, Feng Zichen suddenly summoned all the heavenly legends of the human clan and ordered them to go and take back the ownerless divine cities of the human clan after the god fell. There were only dozens of heavenly legends who could catch Feng Zichen's attention. They were all people who had obtained the fragments of the human king karmic rank and had the qualifications to become kings. Tut, tut, tut. Are you going to make me a matryoshka doll? After everyone left, Feng Zichen looked at the back of one of them with a playful look in his eyes. Chapter 777. Feng Zichen thought this human clan genius was a good person, and Feng Zichen thought that he had a great chance of becoming the human king. Unexpectedly, this guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes turned out to be the reincarnation of the Chaos Fiend God. Good lord, he hid so well that Feng Zichen was almost fooled by him. Yes, this man was the Chaos Fiend God. Whether it was the gods in the outside world or the ordinary human youth hiding in the human clan, they were all pretenses deliberately left by him to hide his true identity. Who would have thought that one of the top geniuses of the human clan was the reincarnation of the chaos fiend god? Sure enough, the most dangerous place was the safest place. This guy had been free and unfettered under Feng Zichen's nose for so long, but Feng Zichen didn't notice anything unusual. That was really something. This time, the chaos fiend god was careless. Otherwise, Feng Zichen wouldn't have been able to discover his identity. At that time, he would inevitably be tricked by this chaos fiend god. After secretly calculating, Feng Zichen found that this chaos fiend god had started to plot against the human clan at least hundreds of thousands of years ago. As for how he hid from Feng Zichen's perception, he could only say that this chaos fiend god was really ruthless. In order to prevent his identity from being exposed, he first reincarnated several times in the untainted land to wash off his chaotic aura, and then reincarnated into the human clan. Then, he didn't rush to carry out his plan, but continued to reincarnate in the human clan. After dozens of reincarnations, he lurked in the human clan. No wonder he dared to show up in front of Feng Zichen without being afraid of being exposed. After reincarnating in the human clan dozens of times, this chaos fiend god was no different from a real human clan. Even now, Feng Zichen didn't see any difference between this chaos fiend god and a real human clan. Since this chaos fiend god had concealed himself so deeply, how had he been exposed? It could only be said that he was too greedy. Seeing that the human clan was in chaos, this chaos fiend god wanted to fight for the throne of the human emperor. Then, he found an opportunity to exchange for a human sovereign karmic rank fragment. He planned to become a human sovereign first and then seize the throne of the human sovereign. The fragment of the human sovereign karmic rank entered his body and tried to merge with his real spirit. That was where the problem came from. No matter how a person changed, their true spirit was always the same. Therefore, no matter how the chaos demon god changed its appearance, its true spirit would always be the true spirit of a chaos demon god. Affected by the fragment of the human sovereign karmic rank, this chaos demon god lost control for a moment and leaked a trace of chaos demon god chi. Although he quickly concealed it, Feng Zichen's perception was so sharp that he could not hide anything from him. The wisp of chaos demon god chi was no exception. Perhaps this chaos fiend god had also sensed that he had been exposed. Therefore he created two fake bodies one after another, one in the light and one in the dark, in order to pass off as genuine and deceive people. But in the end, Feng Zichen was more skillful. He saw through his disguise and found his real body. What a joke! The fragment of the human sovereign karmic rank belonged to Feng Zichen. This chaos demon god had left the fragment of the human sovereign karmic rank in his body and wanted to hide it from him. Wasn't that a joke? If this chaos demon god had forced out the fragment of the human sovereign karmic rank in time, Feng Zichen might not have been able to find him. But he not only left the fragment of the human sovereign karmic rank, but also dared to continue to hang around in front of Feng Zichen. If Feng Zichen still couldn't find him, it would be a miracle. When he first discovered this person's identity, Feng Zichen really wanted to slap him to death. But immediately, Feng Zichen changed his mind. Didn't this chaos demon god want to be the human sovereign? Then Feng Zichen would fulfill his wish. By then, no matter if this chaos demon god, ancestor Hong Yun, or Dong Wang Gong became the human sovereign, Feng Zichen would stuff them into the human sovereign city and use them as perpetual motion machines. As for the other two cities, he would not waste them. One for Sun City and one for Sun City. With the strength of that chaos demon god, it was easy for him to deal with the forces left behind after the fall of the god. Therefore, he easily took over the 40 divine cities and became the overlord of the human clan. However, at this time, perhaps he felt that the time was not right, so the chaos demon god did not choose to set up his own sect. Instead, he continued to submit to Feng Zichen. Feng Zichen did not say anything about this. He was waiting for the next step of the sage's plan. At this point, if the sage did not have a follow-up plan, this show could not go on. As expected, as Feng Zichen expected, the 5 sages finally decided to take action. In the Jade Virtual Palace, the 5 sages looked at each other and said slowly, "My friends, success or failure depends on this." As soon as they finished speaking, everyone nodded and walked out of the Jade Virtual Palace. "Do it!" After a loud roar, heaven and earth trembled and the void wailed. Then, 5 dazzling beams of light rose from Mount Kunlun and blasted toward the human emperor palace. The 5 lights were the ultimate Khanate treasure Tai Chi diagram, Panga's banner, the 4 immortal slaying swords, and the supreme grade Khanate merit spiritual treasure, the 12th grade golden lotus of merit, and the Eastern Cyan treasure lotus flag. Rumble! The 5 ultimate Khanate treasures blasted from Mount Kunlun and broke through layers of the void. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the human clan's territory. Sensing the danger, the immortal dragon city suddenly exploded. Endless divine light rose and turned into a bright light screen in front of the human clan's territory, trying to block the attack. But the result was that it collapsed at the first touch. In front of the 5 ultimate Khanate treasures, the powerful immortal dragon city was defeated without any resistance. After that, the boundary of the 9 states rose. The vague shadows of the 9 cauldrons appeared and suppressed the endless void. The powerful force spread and formed a huge boundary in the sky above the human clan's territory. Unfortunately, the result was no change at all. In the face of the combined attack of the 5 sages, the boundary of the 9 states, which was known as the strongest protection of the human clan, was easily shattered like paper. After destroying the immortal dragon city and the boundary of the 9 states, the 5 saints' treasures continued to blast forward. Their target was the human sovereign palace. Danger! Extreme danger! In the human sovereign palace, seeing the 5 saints' treasures blasting toward him, Feng Zichen felt a sense of danger that he hadn't felt in a long time. If this blow landed, there was a high chance that he would die. Even if his strength had recovered to the level of primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, it would still be the same. Even if Feng Zichen was at his peak, he would be severely injured by the combined attack of the 5 sages, let alone when he was not at his peak. Just as Feng Zichen expected, the 5 sages' follow-up plan had arrived. But he thought of many possibilities, but he did not expect that the 5 sages would choose to attack him directly. What an unexpected result! Heavenly Cycle Palace, activate. Human Tao Imperial Seal, activate. 10,000 Spirit Crown, bless me. Human Tao Divine Ring, protect me. Almost instantaneously, Feng Zichen used all the means at his disposal, preparing to resist the attack. The sages had calculated that he would not dodge, so they chose to launch this attack. That's right, Feng Zichen could not dodge this attack, nor could he counterattack. He could only choose to resist it. Because behind him was the ancestral land of the human race. If Feng Zichen dodged, the sage's attack would definitely blast the ancestral land of the human race into powder. And if he chose to counterattack, the energy fluctuations produced after the collision of these 2 powerful forces would be enough to flatten the human territory. No, not just the human territory, but the primordial land might collapse into pieces. Therefore, Feng Zichen had no way out. In the face of this attack, he could only choose to resist it. With a whoosh, the human Tao Imperial Seal flew over and turned into a huge finger. It stood in front of Feng Zichen as if it was supporting the heavens and the earth. At the same time, the 10,000 spirit crown on his head bloomed with bright light. 72 colored Tao lights hung down and draped over Feng Zichen's body, protecting him firmly. In addition, a bright divine ring appeared behind Feng Zichen's head and surrounded him. This was the human Tao divine ring. It was the blessing of the human Tao to Feng Zichen. With this ring, no one below the primordial chaos could hurt him. As for the power above the primordial chaos, it would also weaken it. And these were not Feng Zichen's strongest defenses. His greatest trump card was the universal palace located in the primordial land. It was the galaxy cosmic light formation formed by it, as well as the god Pangu. Rumble! Under Feng Zichen's command, whether it was the universal palace in the human territory or the human Tao palace located in the primordial land, they all trembled and spewed out endless divine light. Those lights, with the human emperor palace as the center, connected and intersected with each other on the ground. Soon, they formed a huge formation on the ground. It was the Earth version of the galaxy cosmic light formation. Boom! Bright Tao light spewed out from the ground, blotting out the sky and covering the sun, covering the radiance of the sun, moon, and stars. Whoosh! Then, the river of stars surged, vast and mighty, surging endlessly. Cosmic light flashed, accompanied by the river of stars. There was not one, but 2 of the galaxy cosmic light formation. One large and one small, one positive and one negative. They intertwined on the ground, increasing the power of the galaxy cosmic light formation by several folds. Rumble. The faint image of the god Pangu quietly appeared, standing tall on the primordial land and gradually becoming one with Feng Zichen. Just as Feng Zichen used all of his techniques, the Dharma treasures of the five saints also arrived. With a boom, the Dharma treasures of the five saints, after being weakened by the human Tao divine ring, landed solidly on the human Tao imperial seal. Rumble. A powerful shockwave erupted and sent it flying. Fortunately, the main body of the human Tao imperial seal was made from the bones of the Pangu's fingers and was extremely hard. Otherwise, the five saints' attack would not be as simple as tearing it apart. At the very least, a few cracks would have appeared. Boom! After sending the human Tao imperial seal flying, the Dharma treasures of the five saints then landed on the defense of the 10,000 spirit crown, directly tearing apart the 72-colored mystic light that protected Feng Zichen. Then, the five saint treasures landed directly on Feng Zichen's body. With a bang, Feng Zichen felt a strong force hit him, and his qi and blood surged. Then, his body flew out uncontrollably and fell backwards. Rumble. Wherever Feng Zichen passed, the space collapsed layer by layer. He fell into the depths of the void. After a long time, he crawled out of the depths of the void, vomiting blood. However, at this time, he looked extremely miserable. Not only was he vomiting blood, but his body was also covered with wounds, and blood was gushing out like a fountain. He was like an exquisite porcelain that was full of cracks and would shatter at any time. Feng Zichen was seriously injured, as if he would die at any time. After crawling out of the depths of the void, he immediately went into the human emperor palace and announced that he would be in seclusion and would not see outsiders. Just as he fell into the depths of the void, the Dharma treasures of the five saints had already disappeared. Not long after Feng Zichen announced that he would be in seclusion, the news of him being seriously injured and dying spread throughout the untainted land like a storm. Outsiders were shocked by the courage of the saints. They dared to attack the human emperor. They were really lawless. As for the human clan was already in a precarious situation. After knowing that the human emperor was seriously injured and dying, there was an undercurrent surging. Especially those with ulterior motives, they found an opportunity to put on one big show after another in the human clan. It could be said that it was very exciting. Anyway, after the news of Feng Zichen's injury spread, the hearts of the entire untainted land could be said to be fluctuating. At this moment, what was Feng Zichen doing in the human emperor palace? Was he healing? No, he was crying out in pain. He was not injured at all. What was there to heal? The joint attack of the five saints was indeed very strong. However, after being weakened by so much power, how much power was left? When it hit Feng Zichen's body, it was a little exaggerated to say that it was just an itch, but it did not cause any harm to him. It only made his qi and blood tumble, and he was also sent flying. Other than that, Feng Zichen was not injured at all. However, it was quite painful. As for why he was so miserable, it was naturally an act. The saints did not hesitate to attack him. If Feng Zichen did not act more miserable, how could the saints continue the show? Curious about the saints' purpose in attacking him, Feng Zichen was naturally very cooperative and was seriously injured and dying. He wanted to see what the saints were going to do next. At the same time, the five saints were obviously not in a good mood. How could they not pay a price for attacking the human emperor at his peak? Not long after they attacked Feng Zichen, the powerful backlash came. The backlash of power was naturally not taken seriously by the saints. They could destroy it with a flip of their hand. However, the backlash of karma was a headache for the saints. If they ignored it, then their disciples would be in trouble. Thinking of their disciples, the saints still blocked it. Their feet were covered with broken merit spirit treasures. Chapter 778. Although negative karma was mystical, it was not impossible to deal with it. Merit was the nemesis of negative karma. Consuming merit could offset negative karma. This time, in order to offset the negative karma caused by attacking the human emperor, the five saints could be said to have put in a lot of effort. The merit numinous treasures scattered on the ground were the proof. One could see that the spiritual light on the merit numinous treasures had become extremely dim. It was obvious that their spirituality had decreased greatly. Moreover, their bodies were already full of cracks as if they would shatter at any time. The reason for all of this was that the merit on their bodies had been used up in order to offset negative karma. With the depletion of merit, the spirituality of these Dharma treasures naturally decreased greatly, and their power was also greatly reduced. Even if they could be repaired in the future, they would only be reduced to ordinary Dharma treasures and would no longer be called merit numinous treasures. And these merit numinous treasures were almost all of the 5 saints' inventory. After this, even if they still had merit numinous treasures in their hands, there would not be more than 2 or 3 of them. Hundreds of millions of years of collection were emptied in one day. This was a huge price to pay. Even with the wealth of the 5 saints, it was inevitable that they would feel the pinch. However, compared to the results they had achieved, this price was undoubtedly worth it. The arrogant human emperor had really been severely injured by them. He would probably not be able to appear in the Eldritch world in a short period of time. This way, the following situation would be very advantageous to the 5 saints. What were some merit numinous treasures? No matter how valuable these treasures were, could they be more valuable than the Heaven-Earth Mysterious Yellow Pagoda? They had even given up the Heaven-Earth Mysterious Yellow Pagoda, so why would they care about these merit numinous treasures? As long as they could severely injure the human emperor, any price would be worth it. Fellow Taoists, the North Star has been severely injured by us. I'm afraid he won't be able to manage the affairs of the human race in a short period of time. This is our opportunity. The next step of the plan should also be carried out. Take this opportunity to settle the situation with a battle and bring this chaotic situation back to the right track. At the same time, send fellow Taoist North Star back to the heaven realm, so that he can be at ease and continue to be the emperor of the North Star. Don't have any thoughts that you shouldn't have and interfere with the affairs of the human race. The Grand Pure One waved his hand and put away the damaged merit numinous treasures. He looked in the direction of the human emperor's palace and said with hatred. After losing the Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow Pagoda, even with the Grand Pure One's temperament, he could not hide the anger in his heart. He really wanted to skin Feng Zichen alive. His hatred for Feng Zichen was really like the waves of the Milky Way, and it was difficult to wash away. Senior brother is right. This battle has been going on for almost 100,000 years. It's about time for a conclusion. After the Grand Pure One finished speaking, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning continued. In terms of hatred for Feng Zichen, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was not inferior to the Grand Pure One. In fact, he was even more resentful. In the battle between the Grand Pure One and Feng Zichen, the Grand Pure One had lost the mysterious Yellow Pagoda. It seemed like he had suffered a loss. However, in reality, he did not suffer a loss. He had first snatched 20% of the destiny of the human race. Feng Zichen counterattacked angrily and snatched the mysterious Yellow Pagoda. Even if he lost the mysterious Yellow Pagoda, the Grand Pure One still had 20% of the destiny of the human race in his hands. It could not be said that he had suffered a loss. However, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was different. He had really suffered a huge loss at the hands of Feng Zichen. Not to mention that he had fought with Feng Zichen several times previously, he had not gained any advantage at all. He had also suffered repeatedly and lost face. Take the previous battle for example. The Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning's right arm had been cut off by Feng Zichen. Until now, he had not recovered and was still in the state of a broken arm. The dignified saint, the supreme expert of the primordial world, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning, was actually walking in the world with a single arm. The Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning did not know what ordinary people said, but he felt that it was really embarrassing. The one-armed Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was not perfect. How could the primordial Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning tolerate this? Because of this, ever since he returned from the chaos outside, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning had been in seclusion. Unless he had no choice, he would not take half a step out of the Jade Void Palace. He did not even want to see outsiders. However, the only thing that comforted the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning was that although his right arm was broken, his strength was not affected much. This was not because Feng Zichen was not ruthless enough. On the contrary, he hated the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning to the core. Therefore, when he attacked, he was merciless. In theory, even if the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning did not suffer any serious injuries, his strength should have dropped by 1 or 2 points. But who asked him to have a good master? After the battle in the chaos outside, The three pure ones and the others followed Tao ancestor Hongjun to the Purple Cloud Palace. In the Purple Cloud Palace, the Tao ancestor looked at the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings' injuries. Although he did not heal his broken arm, he also eliminated the impact of the broken arm on his strength. It was not that Tao ancestor Hongjun did not want to reconnect the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings' broken arm, but he could not do it. In desperation, he took a step back and treated the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginnings' injuries. From this, it could be seen that Feng Zichen's sword was so ruthless that even the Tao ancestor was helpless. He could only let the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning continue to maintain his broken arm. Senior brother is right. There should be an outcome to this battle. Seeing that both his brothers had spoken, the Grandmaster of Heaven hurriedly expressed his opinion. Senior brother, you're right. The three pure ones had unified their opinions, so there was no room for the saint to refuse. The two of them also hurriedly expressed their opinions. All right, since all of you have agreed, let's inform Dong Wanggong and Ancestor Hong Yun and let them start the plan. Seeing that everyone had agreed, the Grand Pure One made the final decision. In the human territory, Donghua City. This was the place where Taoist Donghua, the overlord of the human race, attained his Tao. At the same time, it was also the foundation of his life. He used this city as his foundation and rose step by step. In the end, he became a great figure of the human race, second only to the human emperor. He, Taoist Donghua, was the reincarnation of Dong Wanggong, the leader of the ancient male immortals. He was in charge of more than 50 divine cities in the east of the human race and was a veritable overlord of the human race. The name of Dong Wanggong had been taken by the impostor Feng Zichen. Therefore, Dong Wanggong, who was reincarnated into the human race, had no choice but to change his name to Taoist Donghua. The reason why there was still the word Dong in his name was that Taoist Donghua could not forget his identity as Dong Wanggong. He was constantly reminding and encouraging himself so that one day, he could take back his former name. At this time, Taoist Donghua, who was in seclusion in the City Lord Mansion, suddenly received a message from the three pure ones, telling him that the time for the decisive battle had arrived. The plan had already begun. He no longer needed to endure and could fully display his ambitions. God knew how long Taoist Donghua had been waiting for this news. Since losing his identity, Taoist Donghua had been working hard to cultivate in order to restore his strength as soon as possible and take back everything that had once belonged to him. But it was too difficult. After losing his identity as Dong Wanggong, Taoist Donghua also lost his own luck. Without the assistance of Providence, his cultivation speed would undoubtedly become extremely slow. But no matter how difficult it was, he had to find a way to overcome it. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would sink into oblivion forever. For this reason, Taoist Donghua had tried everything. Finally one day, Taoist Donghua accidentally obtained a divine city imperial jade seal, and from then on, his road to hegemony began. In the battle for the divine city, Taoist Donghua seized more than 60 divine cities of the human clan in one fell swoop. With this, he was infused with the luck of the human clan, and his cultivation level was restored to the sage to B level, becoming a mighty figure of the generation. Originally, Taoist Donghua should have been stronger, but unfortunately, deity appeared out of nowhere and took more than 10 divine cities from him, causing Taoist Donghua's strength to drop a few points. However, even so, he was still the top existence of the human clan. Without the human emperor, few people in the human clan could match him. Waking up from his memories, Taoist Donghua suddenly got up and walked out of the quiet room to summon his civil and military officials to the council hall for a discussion. He wanted to tell everyone that the era of great battle had arrived. In addition to Donghua City, in the western part of the human clan's territory, a divine city called Yun City was also not peaceful. The existence who ruled Yun City was as famous as Taoist Donghua, Taoist Ziyun. This person was also one of the overlords of the human clan, ruling more than 50 divine cities in the west. There was no doubt that Taoist Ziyun was the reincarnation of Ancestor Hong Yun. As for why he was called Taoist Ziyun and not Ancestor Hong Yun, there was also a reason. Ziyun naturally referred to Hong Yun. Ziyun referred to Hongming's purple qi. Ancestor Hong Yun wanted to become a saint in this life, so he took a character from Hongming's purple qi and his own name to form his new name. This represented his ambition to become a saint. It was ridiculous that he could become a saint just by giving a name. This saint was really cheap. Not to mention Taoist Ziyun's name, his experience was completely different from Taoist Dong Hua's. Taoist Dong Hua was able to achieve what he had today all by his own efforts, and during this period, he had encountered countless dangers. He was really fighting for his future with his life. However, Taoist Ziyun was different. Because of the fire cloud cave, his journey could be said to be smooth. He could pick up treasures while walking on the road. With a shake of his body, there would be magi coming from all directions to worship him. He was a proper protagonist template. Taoist Ziyun did not participate in the Battle of the Divine Cities at all. As for why he, who did not participate in the battle, would control so many divine cities of the human clan, it could only be said that he was lucky and could really do whatever he wanted. When people sat at home, the jade seal of the divine cities would come from the sky. There was no need to fight at all. The jade seal of the divine cities would always appear by Taoist Ziyun's side through various coincidences and be obtained by him. Ever since Taoist Ziyun's debut, the only time he suffered a loss was when he was defeated by deity, who took more than 10 divine cities of the human clan from him. This was something that could not be helped. After all, for the untainted land, the chaos demon gods were bugs, and most of the existing rules were useless to them. It was normal that Taoist Ziyun's luck could not affect deity. To be honest, if there was no Feng Zichen, ancestor Hong Yun would be the destined human emperor. The luck brought to him by the Fire Cloud Cave was really too strong. To put it in another way, all the sages of the human clan who lived in the Fire Cloud Cave, including the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, had to give a wisp of luck to ancestor Hong Yun, the original owner of the Fire Cloud Cave. Ancestor Hong Yun, who had such a strong luck, would definitely have the disposition of the human emperor if he was reincarnated into the human clan. It was a pity that he chose to be the enemy of Feng Zichen. Otherwise, he might have a chance to become the human emperor. However, what was certain now was that he, who was the enemy of Feng Zichen, was destined to go against the position of the human emperor. After Taoist Dong Hua received the message from the 3 Pure Ones, Taoist Ziyun also received the message from the 2 sages of the West. Yes, the 5 sages did not support one person, but 2. The 3 Pure Ones supported Taoist Dong Hua, while the 2 sages of the West supported Taoist Ziyun. This was easy to understand. The 2 sages of the West owed ancestor Hong Yun, so they had to stand on his side no matter what. As for the 3 Pure Ones, it was probably difficult for them to like ancestor Hong Yun. After all, the 2 sages of the West could be said to have been supported by him. With anger in their hearts, the 3 Pure Ones chose to support Dong Wang Gong, who came from the Xian sect. He was their fellow disciple and was valued by the Tao ancestor in the past. The 3 Pure Ones were indeed more suitable to support him than ancestor Hong Yun. Since Feng Zichen was seriously injured, the human clan had fallen into silence. At this moment, it was suddenly broken by a loud voice. The human emperor lost his way and was punished by the heavens. Today he was punished by the heavens. This is the proof. Today, I, Taoist Dong Hua, call myself the King of the East. I want to lead an army to attack the human emperor city to get rid of the incapable ruler and return the human clan a bright world. Taoist Dong Hua rebelled. In the name of Feng Zichen being attacked by the sage, he accused him of being punished by the heavens. Then he called himself the king and rebelled. To be honest, this accusation was so strong that even Feng Zichen couldn't wash it off even if he wanted to. Among the human clan, the rumors about Feng Zichen being punished by the heavens were not new. Similar rumors had appeared many years ago. It was just that at that time, Feng Zichen was at the peak of his power and no one chose to believe it. As for where this rumor came from, it probably started when the environment in the human clan's territory was getting worse and worse. Tens of thousands of years ago, the sage distorted the acquired laws, causing the environment in the human clan's territory to become worse and worse. Extreme weather also happened from time to time. Because of this, there were rumors about Feng Zichen being punished by the heavens in the human clan. Although Feng Zichen had tried very hard to control the environment, rumors could not be stopped. Coupled with the instigation of people with ulterior motives, it was even more difficult to calm down. However, with Feng Zichen's prestige in the human clan, even if there were some rumors, it was nothing to worry about because no one would believe them. But now, the situation was different. Although Feng Zichen was injured by the sage and not the heavens, how could ordinary people tell the difference between the sage and the heavens? In their eyes, the sage's attack was no different from the heavens. In that case, there was nothing wrong with it. The sage was the spokesperson of the heavenly Tao. In a sense, it was the heaven's attack on Feng Zichen. In this era, all living beings were still in awe of the heavens. Regardless of whether Feng Zichen was wrong or not, as long as all living beings believed that the heavens had attacked him, then he was wrong. Chapter 779. God would not attack good people. Therefore, those who were targeted by God must be bad people. The logic was perfect and impeccable. Feng Zichen was really a bad person. A tyrant. Not long after Taoist Donghua and Taoist Ziyun openly rebelled, God, the demon god of chaos who had transformed into the heavenly son of the human clan, finally could not hold back and announced a rebellion in the name of the human emperor. However, in addition to being cruel, he also gave Feng Zichen the title of being jealous of the virtuous. He revealed his identity and said that he was the fallen god. It was Feng Zichen who was jealous of his virtuousness and worried that he would threaten his position after he grew up. Therefore, after he seized more than 40 divine cities of the human clan, he secretly plotted against him and planned to kill him to prevent future troubles. Fortunately, he was blessed by God. He was born with 2 souls, so he escaped the disaster and had the opportunity to expose Feng Zichen's ugly face in front of the world. As soon as he said that, the world was in an uproar. Anyone with a little cultivation would definitely not believe in God's words. The Daluo Taoist priests, who had cultivated for 100 years, was simply an insult to everyone's IQ if they insisted that God was not a problem. However, God's words did not need to be believed. He was just looking for a good reason for his rebellion, and at the same time, attacking Feng Zichen's prestige. In addition to him, those with ulterior motives also did not believe in God's words. However, this did not prevent them from using this as an excuse to desperately smear Feng Zichen. After all, rebellion was a dishonorable thing and not a righteous thing. Therefore, in order to establish their righteous image, they had to desperately smear Feng Zichen. Only by completely smearing Feng Zichen's reputation could their actions be regarded as righteous and a very glorious thing. It was an uprising, a rebellion against the oppression of a tyrant, not a rebellion for power. Of course, there were those who did not believe, and naturally there were those who believed. It should be known that there was no lack of ignorant people in this world. After seeing Feng Zichen suffer the wrath of heaven, they would naturally think that he was a sinner. Next, no matter who splashed dirty water on Feng Zichen, regardless of whether it was true or not, as long as there was a first impression, they would choose to believe it. Even if the evidence was placed in front of them, they probably wouldn't change their minds. Ignorant and paranoid. The root cause of this was Feng Zichen. His plan to enlighten the people had not yet been perfected. If everyone could be enlightened and no longer be ignorant, then these rumors could be dispelled by themselves and would not be able to shake Feng Zichen in the slightest. Because no one would believe him. It would never be like now, where the rumors would become more and more intense with the promotion of people with ulterior motives, and there was a tendency for it to spread to the entire human race. Of course, although the rumors were fierce, Feng Zichen had ruled the human race for so many years that there were still some loyal people. Almost all the Khanate Taoist priests of the human race were loyal to Feng Zichen. There were also the royal families, and the big families of the human race who were also loyal to him. In addition, Feng Zichen also controlled more than 80% of the human race's forces. The rebellion of Taoist Donghua, Taoist Ziyun, and Deity seemed to be great, but in comparison, one would find that even if the 3 of them worked together, their strength was far less than Feng Zichen's. The rebellion of the 3 of them was tantamount to hitting a stone with an egg. However, even so, the 3 of them still chose to rebel. It was not that they were stubborn, but that they each had something to rely on. As soon as the 3 of them announced the rebellion, without needing Feng Zichen's order, his subordinates acted separately. The sages of the human race led by Feng Kangmang did their best to suppress the rumors. As for the Taoist priests of the human race, they left the ancestral land of the human race one after another, and went to the major divine cities of the human race in person to stabilize the people's hearts. As soon as Feng Zichen's side worked hard, the more than 200 divine cities under his rule were quickly stabilized, and all kinds of rumors about Feng Zichen faded and disappeared. However, outside the 200 divine cities of the human race, Feng Zichen was a little far away from the sphere of influence controlled by Taoist Donghua, Taoist Ziyun, and Deity. The rumors became more and more intense. Soon, the understanding of the human race in these more than 160 divine cities of the human race about Feng Zichen gradually stopped at the level of a tyrant. People were forgetful. No matter what contributions Feng Zichen had made to the human race before, they would not care. They only knew that Feng Zichen had been punished by heaven and was a tyrant. After listing the 10 major crimes of Feng Zichen, deity, Taoist Ziyun, and Taoist Donghua sent troops at the same time, from the south, west, and east, respectively, to the ancestral land of the human race, intending to overthrow Feng Zichen's rule. Rebellion? Discredit? Is this your way? That's undoubtedly disappointing. The hundreds of Daluo Taoist priests of the human race are not here to play. With them in charge, even if the 3 of them turn out in full force, they can't take down the divine cities of the human race. In the human emperor palace, Feng Zichen looked at the changes of the human race with a look of interest in his eyes. He wanted to see what other plans the 5 saints had. They must have a backup plan, otherwise. The hundreds of Daluo Taoist priests of the human race were there. This alone was enough to make the 3 rebels despair. Feng Zichen could roughly guess the saints' plan. It was nothing more than forcing the human Taoist priests away with various reasons, or setting up various restrictions so that the human Taoist priests could not intervene in this battle. In fact, it was just as Feng Zichen had thought. That was the plan of the sage. Back then, Emperor Xianxia could cut off heaven and earth, so could they. However, the saints' heaven and earth was different from Emperor Xuanxia's heaven and earth. They only restricted existences above the level of the Daluo Taoist priests. Yes, it was specifically targeted at the human race. The saints did not hide their purpose at all. Of course, there was no need to hide it. The saints had the capital to be domineering. If the primordial world was a game, the heavenly Tao would be the manager of the game, and the saints would be the manager of the game. And primordial Daluo Jingxian like Feng Zichen had some loopholes. As long as the game manager did not care about the user's experience, they would have the final say in how the game came about. Dissatisfaction. They could either hold it in or delete their accounts and leave. If they deleted their accounts and left in the primordial world, they would naturally die. Of course, if they were strong enough, they could also use their powerful capital to compete for authority with a manager like Feng Zichen. The 3 armies set off aggressively, as if they were going to attack the root of the problem. Unfortunately, the truth was the opposite. They were aggressive, but they did not get off to a good start. Not to mention the human race's ancestral land, they did not even take down the first divine city. When the 3 armies arrived at the human race's divine city with the heart of victory, they were greeted by dozens of godlike figures. That's right, they were all Daluo Taoist priests. The 3 armies came from 3 directions: east, west, and south. Each army was guarded by dozens of Daluo Taoist priests, making sure that the rebel army could not take a step forward. The rebel army still had the courage to fight with a few Daluo Taoist priests, but dozens of Daluo Taoist priests were a little difficult for them. If they were not worried about the revenge of the saints, the reincarnations of the ancient powerhouses would have run away long ago. Speaking of which, it was not that there were no Daluo Taoist priests among the reincarnations of the ancient powerhouses. However, how could the number of Daluo Taoist priests be compared to the number of Daluo Taoist priests of the human race? If the human race Taoist priests rushed forward, even a sage-to-be would have to die, let alone the reincarnations of the ancient powerhouses. As for resurrecting the ancient demon gods, it was fine if Tai had not been resurrected, but now that he had been resurrected, the saints did not dare to think about it anymore. It would be hilarious if the demon race became a huge threat after the human race was dealt with. Brothers, it's time to attack. Looking at the 3 armies that were blocked, Saint Zhuan-Ti said in a deep voice. The Sea of Laws was broken by us, and now it's going to be rebuilt in our hands. Everything is destined. After Saint Zhuan-Ti finished speaking, Saint Jia-yin could not help but sigh. Hearing this, Saint Tai-Ching glanced at Saint Jia-yin thoughtfully. A strange light flashed in his eyes, but he did not say anything. He only raised the Taiji diagram and prepared to repair the Sea of Laws. However, just as the 5 saints were about to attack, there was a change in the chaos outside the sky. Balls of chaos origin suddenly appeared and floated in the chaos outside the sky. Like a placenta, they kept squirming. Dong, 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 dong. Loud heartbeats came from the placenta formed by the chaos origin, causing the surrounding chaos chi to vibrate and resonate with it. Inexplicably, mysterious voices suddenly sounded in the chaos outside the sky. The tone was unusually ancient and mysterious, as if the great Tao was whispering and contained incredible power. This was not the language of the primordial world, but the language of the ancient chaos demon gods. It was the chaos divine language, the divine language passed down by the great Tao. The Tao rumbled and resonated with the chaos outside the sky. The surrounding chaos chi immediately boiled and rushed toward the placenta. Then, a shocking change happened. Connate ferocious beasts crawled out of the placenta and roared in the chaos outside the sky. Roar, 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 roar. The loud roars of the beasts reverberated in the chaos outside the sky, causing the surrounding chaos chi to boil even more. It formed a tide that could destroy the world and swept toward the primordial world. Rumble. The tide of chaos from the sky swept over and slammed into the barrier of the boundless starry sky, causing it to tremble. The boundless starry sky was located at the center of the primordial world and the chaos outside the sky. It was the biggest barrier of the primordial world and had been resisting the invasion of the chaos for the world. How can this be? Why is the chaos outside the sky suddenly rioting? The moment the boundless starry sky was attacked by the chaos outside the sky, Great Emperor Ziwei, who was observing the situation of the human race on Ziwei planet, couldn't help but turn his head and look at the chaos outside the sky in surprise. Then, he saw a dense crowd of connate ferocious beasts. Hiss! Seeing this, Great Emperor Ziwei couldn't help but gasp. This wasn't fear, this was excitement. Looking at so many connate ferocious beasts, Great Emperor Ziwei's eyes lit up. The chaos demonic god was truly a good person. Not long ago, he was still worried about where to find more than 360 connate ferocious beasts at the level of Daluo Taoist priests. Now they were all here. As far as the eye could see, there were more than 1,000 connate ferocious beasts in the chaos outside the sky. It was densely packed. Feng Zichen would believe it if he said there were 10,000 of them. And at least 1/10 of these connate ferocious beasts were at the level of Daluo Taoist priests. 1/10 of 10,000 connate ferocious beasts was equivalent to 1,000. 1,000 connate ferocious beasts at the level of Taoist priests. Only the chaos demon gods could take out such a big sum. Of course, the chaos demon gods here were those in the chaos outside the world, not the group of cripples in the realm C. 1,000 connate ferocious beasts were definitely enough to satisfy Feng Zichen's needs. There were only 365 divine cities of the human race. In other words, Feng Zichen only lacked 360 connate ferocious beasts, which was about 1/3 of the total number. Of course, the more connate ferocious beasts there were, the better. There were too many uses for them. Even if they weren't used as the eye of the array, they could be used to refine connate spirit treasures. The human race also lacked connate spirit treasures. Looking at these connate ferocious beasts, Great Emperor Ziwei's eyes glowed with greed. He wished he could capture all of them alive. After deducting those that the human race's divine cities needed, he would raise the rest in case of emergencies. He was crazy enough to raise connate ferocious beasts. However, if he could really raise connate ferocious beasts, then with how precious they were, Great Emperor Ziwei would make a fortune. At the very least, he wouldn't lack the origin of chaos in the future. Great Emperor Ziwei's idea was quite good, but his idea of monopolizing these connate ferocious beasts was difficult to realize. This was because in addition to him, there were 2 other people who coveted these connate ferocious beasts. They also wished they could capture all of them alive and raise them in captivity. Those 2 people were Zhu and Ti. Naturally, what happened in the chaos outside the world couldn't escape the senses of the saints. Not long after Great Emperor Ziwei noticed the abnormality, they also noticed that something was wrong. Then, they saw the group of connate ferocious beasts wandering around the chaos outside the world. When the 3 pure ones saw this, they frowned. When the 2 saints of the West saw this, their eyes lit up. In their eyes, those connate ferocious beasts were no longer ferocious beasts. Instead, they were obedient and cute disciples who were enough to inherit their orthodoxy. That's right, disciples. The main source of the Western sect's disciples was the connate ferocious beasts that the 2 saints of the West had enlightened. However, how could the connate ferocious beasts that they had spent so much effort to find in the primordial world be compared to the connate ferocious beasts that were directly created by the Chaos Fiend God? These connate ferocious beasts were the future pillars of the Western sect. Look, their big bright eyes are filled with a thirst for the Tao. Tiske, their eyes were red with desire. They were indeed very eager. If they could capture all of these connate ferocious beasts and enlighten them one by one, then the Western sect's day of prosperity would not be far away. Looking at the connate ferocious beasts in the chaos outside the world, The two saints of the West thought. This guy, the connate ferocious beasts that everyone hated in the past had now become rare creatures. It was really rare. The world was really unpredictable. Great Emperor Ziwei wanted to capture the connate ferocious beasts and use them as the array core of the human race's divine city. The two saints of the West wanted to capture the connate ferocious beasts and cultivate them as disciples. Chapter 780. Although the two had different goals, their goals were the same. They had collided. On Ziwei Star, Great Emperor Ziwei suddenly stretched out his palm. Endless starlight gathered and turned into a giant hand. It covered the sky and the sun as it grabbed at the chaos outside the sky. Rumble! The giant hand was boundless, and it was getting bigger and bigger. When it first left Ziwei Star, the giant hand was only the size of Ziwei Star. But as it attacked, with the support of Zhouxing, it became bigger and bigger. When it rushed out of the boundless starry sky and arrived at the chaos outside the sky, it was already half the size of the boundless starry sky. The giant hand covered the sky and swept over from the boundless starry sky, almost enveloping all the innate beasts. With a grab, the innate beasts that were enveloped by it all surged uncontrollably toward the palm of the giant hand. Great Emperor Ziwei's palm actually wanted to capture all the innate beasts. Seeing this scene, Saint Zhuan-Ti and Saint Zhuan-Yin on Kunlun Mountain were stunned. They couldn't help but curse. This attack was too ruthless. He didn't intend to leave a single one for others. It wasn't good to eat alone. Anxious, Zhuan-Ti and Saint Zhuan-Yin attacked at the same time. They attacked the giant hand that Great Emperor Ziwei had grabbed out. These innate beasts were the key to whether the Western sect could prosper. They couldn't fall into the hands of outsiders. Zhuan-Ti and Saint Zhuan-Yin were fast, but someone was faster. They were the chaos demon gods who had hidden in the chaos outside the sky and released these innate beasts. All the innate beasts were about to fall into the palm of Great Emperor Ziwei's supernatural power. Above the chaos outside the sky, 9 terrifying figures suddenly appeared. Their bodies were all enveloped by a layer of chaotic aura, making it impossible to see their faces clearly. A terrifying aura spread from their bodies, shattering the chaos around them. Primordial Chaos Daluo Jingxian. These 9 chaos demon gods were all existences at the level of Primordial Chaos Daluo Jingxian. Rumble! 9 terrifying waves of energy surged out from the 9 chaos demon gods and surged toward the palm of Great Emperor Ziwei. With a loud boom, the giant hand was shattered by the combined power of the 9 terrifying waves. It turned into countless specks of light and dissipated. At the same time, the Xianxia ferocious beast that had been captured earlier fell from the sky as the giant hand shattered. It fled into the distance with a terrified look on its face. Oh! Chaos Demon God? As he spoke, the silhouette of Ziwei the Great disappeared from Ziwei Star. He arrived in the chaos beyond the heavens and faced the 9 chaos demon gods. Not long after him, the 7 saints, Donghuang Tai, and the others also rushed over. In the face of a great enemy, internal strife had to be put aside for a while. First, they had to work together to drive back the enemy. This is called brothers fighting against the wall, resisting the humiliation from the outside. It could be said that at this time, all the experts of the origin in Untainted Land had arrived, except for the top experts of the Primitive Age and the human emperor Feng Zichen. Why didn't Feng Zichen come? Of course it was because he was recuperating. The 7 saints, Ziwei the Great, and Donghuang Tai added up to 9 Daluo Jingxian of the primordial chaos, and the other side was 9 chaos demon gods of the primordial chaos level. 9 against 9. It was just 1 against 1, so it was very fair. Holding their breaths and concentrating, the 9 of them each took out their magic treasures and were about to attack the chaos demon gods. However, right at that moment, the leader of the 9 chaos demon gods spoke. Descendants of Pangu, have you really thought it through? Do you really want to fight against us? Do you know what the chaotic battle between the 18 Daluo Jingxian of the primordial chaos means to this world? Hearing this, the 9 of them fell silent. Of course they knew the consequences. If they were not careful, the untainted land would be shattered into pieces by them. But if they did not fight, were they going to let the chaos demon gods invade? Was this a joke? Panga's father did not give this world to them for them to give it to the chaos demon gods. If the chaos demon gods wanted to enter the untainted land, they would have to step over their corpses. They would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. This was their attitude towards the Chaos Demon Gods. Seeing that the 9 of them were silent, the leader of the Chaos Demon Gods continued, "Descendants of Pangu, how about we make a bet? If you win, we'll turn around and leave. If we win, we don't want much. We just need to open up a place to live in the untainted land." Hearing this, the 9 of them looked inexplicable. After a while, the Grand Pure One, who was the oldest, asked, "How do you want to bet?" To the 9 of them, although they did not want to see the Chaos Demon Gods enter the untainted land, they were even more unwilling to fight with them. That was because the price was simply too great. They were almost risking the destruction of the untainted land to fight with them. Dancing on a steel wire rope was like that. Hearing the Grand Pure One's question, the leader of the Chaos Demon Gods knew that they were tempted. Therefore he said, "It's simple. We won't attack and let our subordinates fight." With that, the leader of the Chaos Demon Gods pointed at the connate ferocious beasts that were making a scene in the chaos outside the sky and said, "Do you see these connate ferocious beasts? Next, I'll let them charge into the untainted land, and what you have to do is to let your subordinates do their best to stop the connate ferocious beasts. In the end, when the connate ferocious beasts are all killed by your side, nothing will be mentioned. But if your side is no match for the connate ferocious beasts and is attacked by them into the untainted land, all the places that have been ravaged by the connate ferocious beasts will belong to us, the Chaos Demon Gods. In that case, what do you think?" After saying that, the leader of the Chaos Demon Gods stopped talking and just stared at them quietly, waiting for the 9 of them to answer. The 9 of them looked at each other and communicated with their eyes, but they did not make a decision for a long time. They were waiting for the person who could make the decision to speak. Although the Chaos Fiend God Baba had said a lot to the 9 of them, his words were in vain, because they could not make the decision for such a big matter. But don't forget that although the 9 of them were strong, they were only the managers of the untainted land and not the masters of the untainted land. It was not their turn to be the masters of the untainted land. From the beginning to the end, there was only one person in charge of the untainted land, and that was Tao Ancestor Hongjun. Whether or not they agreed to the bet proposed by the Chaos Demon God still depended on Tao Ancestor Hongjun's opinion. Silence. Endless silence. If Tao Ancestor Hongjun did not speak, the 9 of them did not dare to agree to anything. Otherwise, when Tao Ancestor Hongjun spoke and his opinion was different from theirs, it would be awkward. After an unknown period of time, when the Chaos Demon God was about to get impatient, Tao Ancestor Hongjun, who had gone offline, finally came online and sent a message to them. When they heard the ethereal Tao sound in their ears, the 9 of them immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Even they would feel tired after maintaining their energy and confronting others at a high intensity. After shaking his sleeves, the Grand Pure One said to the impatient Chaos Demon God, "We agree to your suggestion. When will the bet begin?" Hearing that, the leading Chaos Demon God's eyes lit up and he said, "I won't take advantage of you. I'll give you 100 years to mobilize your troops and gather your men. 100 years later, it will be the time when the innate stage ferocious beasts attack the untainted land." After saying that, the 9 Chaos Demon Gods slowly disappeared into the chaos beyond the sky. The Chaos Demon God was much more familiar with the chaos than them. It was almost equivalent to having the home field advantage. It was really difficult to defeat the Chaos Demon God there. Fighting in an away field was already disadvantageous to the 9 of them. Besides, who knew if there were other Chaos Demon Gods lurking in the dark? It was because of these concerns that the 9 of them did not choose to fight the Chaos Demon God. The Chaos Demon God had a strong foundation and was not afraid of losing. He could fight with them at any time. However, they were different. They could not lose. Once they lost, they would lose everything. Therefore, the 9 of them would not easily start a war with the Chaos Demon God without full confidence. Of course, the great Emperor of Ziwei did not know what others thought about the current outcome, but he was still quite satisfied. Because this was what he had been hoping for. If they really fought with the Chaos Demon God, the great Emperor of Ziwei was not confident that he could capture 360 innate stage ferocious beasts alive during the war. But now it was different. Although he could not fight in terms of subordinates, which race in the untainted land could be compared to the human race? It would not be difficult to take down 300 innate stage ferocious beasts if 300 innate stage Taoist priests attacked together. Besides, who said that the human race was the only force under Feng Zichen's command? What other paths of celestial demons did he have? and the boundless starry sky. Although most of the innate star gods were killed by the demon race, there were still some who survived. And this was the greatest foundation of the boundless starry sky. Among the ancient innate star gods, none of them was weaker than the innate Taoist priests. There were even a few sage to be among them. Feng Zichen secretly calculated that he could mobilize about 400 Daluo Taoist priests without exposing the foundation of the human race. This force was enough. He also had the blood altar, which could resurrect the Daluo Taoist priests infinitely. This made them invincible. In this way, it should not be difficult to take down 400 innate stage ferocious beasts at the level of the Taoist priests. However, in this way, the human Taoist priests would have to leave the untainted land and head to the chaos beyond the heavens to prepare for war. Wouldn't this benefit the 3 rebel armies? With the human Taoist priests in the way, no matter how much trouble the 3 rebel armies made, they would not be able to overturn the heavens and take a step forward. But once the human Taoist priests left, the biggest stumbling block in front of the rebel armies would be gone. With this, they would have the possibility of attacking the human race's ancestral land. If this did not benefit them, who else would benefit? He had a feeling that these chaos demon gods were targeting the human race. Otherwise, how could things be so coincidental? As soon as the gods here rebelled, the chaos demon gods on the other side made such a move. These chaos fiend gods were most likely assisting the deity. The more Great Emperor Ziwei thought about it, the more likely he felt this was. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? If this was really the case, the chaos demon gods were a little too generous. Great Emperor Ziwei's guess was basically close to the truth. The reason why the chaos demon gods appeared at this time was to help the gods and restrain the human Taoist priests. At the same time, they also knew the principle of not putting all their eggs in one basket. Therefore, they had prepared for both eventualities. In addition to the gods causing trouble in the human race, they also made a bet with the 9 people to send innate stage ferocious beasts to attack the untainted land. In this way, as long as either of these 2 plans succeeded, their purpose of entering the untainted land would be achieved. The 9 people present were all smart. After thinking for a while, they understood the chaos demon god's plan. But there was nothing they could do about it. In the battlefield with the chaos demon gods, there was no doubt that they were the weak group and could only passively defend. When the chaos demon gods made a move, they could only respond. Moreover, the untainted land was their home ground. The chaos demon gods thought that they had succeeded, but they didn't know that the 9 people were planning to make them lose both their lives and their wealth. The 9 people looked at each other and didn't say anything. Then, they went back to mobilize their troops. Although it was said that they were mobilizing their troops, only the human race, the wizard race, and the demon race occupied the majority. In the current untainted land, perhaps only these 3 races could mobilize hundreds of Daluo Taoist priests. That's not right. Perhaps the 3 races could also mobilize so many Daluo Taoist priests. However, since ancient times, the 3 races had become unusually low-key. No one knew how much strength they had hidden. Tiske, gods, I really underestimated you. I didn't expect the chaos demon gods to be willing to spend so much on you. They even didn't hesitate to start a war with the untainted land. How surprising. In the human emperor palace, Feng Zichen, who was recuperating from his illness, couldn't help but look surprised when he learned everything that had happened in the chaos beyond the heavens through Great Emperor Ziwei. He had always been on guard against the 5 saints. In fact, he even planned to take advantage of the time when the 5 saints were attacking to give them a harsh lesson. But in the end, he didn't expect the chaos demon gods to attack before the 5 saints and completely disrupted Feng Zichen's plan. As a result, the 5 saints escaped the disaster. The 5 saints were quite lucky. This time, the chaos fiend god had indirectly helped them. They had defended against everything, but they had forgotten about the chaos demon gods. Instead, they had been schemed against by him. That was enough. Alas, it was retribution. Feng Zichen had schemed against the chaos demon god so many times. Why couldn't he get back at him for once? Anyway, he didn't lose much. Not to mention, the chaos demon gods probably wouldn't have dreamed that letting the human Taoist priests leave was part of Feng Zichen's plan. If the human Taoist priests didn't leave, the rebel army wouldn't be able to take a step forward. How could Dong Hua, Zi Yun, and Deity become the human emperors? If they couldn't become the human emperors, How could Feng Zichen's plan of making them sacrifices be carried out? Therefore, even if the Chaos Demon Gods hadn't come, Feng Zichen would have found a way to find a reason to send the human Taoist priests out of the untainted land. Otherwise, how could he continue the big show? This time, instead of saying that the Chaos Demon Gods had schemed against Feng Zichen, it was better to say that the Chaos Demon Gods had inadvertently done him a big favor. If the Chaos Demon Gods hadn't helped, Feng Zichen would have had to spend a lot of effort to come up with a reason. How troublesome that would have been. Now, everything was saved. This time, Feng Zichen was in the atmosphere. Chapter 781. After the 9 of them discussed, they directly issued a Tao order to all living beings, summoning all the Khanate Taoist priests in the Eldritch world to head to the chaos beyond the heavens to hunt the Khanate ferocious beasts. This was a Tao order, an order of the heavenly Tao. No one could violate it. Even if they did not want to go, they had to go after the Tao order was issued. As a part of the Eldritch world, they usually enjoyed the resources of the world. Now that the enemy was invading, how could they not contribute at all? If anyone did not go, the 9 primordial chaos experts would not mind making an example of them and sending them back to the world. It could be considered as repaying the kindness of the world for giving birth to them. As soon as the Tao order was issued, it directly sounded in the minds of all the Daoyuo Taoist priests, letting them understand the cause and effect of this battle. There was no race in this battle. Anyone who went to the chaos beyond the heavens was fighting for the Eldritch world and all living beings of the world. They should have great merit. When the battle was over, the heavenly Tao would appear and give endless merit to reward the heroes. On the eve of the Tao order, in the human territory, the human Taoist priests were bored and were thinking about how to play with the rebel army. However, suddenly, the Tao order descended and asked them to leave the Eldritch world and head to the chaos beyond the heavens to fight the Khanate ferocious beasts. In an instant, the human Taoist priests looked at the rebel army in front of them and were dumbfounded. Now that the human emperor was seriously injured and the rebel army had not been eliminated, how could they leave so easily? If they left at this time, wouldn't they be giving the rebel army a chance? However, they had to obey the Tao order. If they did not go to the chaos beyond the heavens, they would probably be killed by the saint now. After hesitating for a while, the human Taoist priests looked at the rebel army with a dangerous gaze. They originally wanted to play with the rebel army, but now it seemed that there was no chance. With this thought in mind, everyone attacked. They used their strongest techniques to kill the rebel army. They wanted to kill the rebel army in one blow. At the critical moment, 2 bright rays of light suddenly rushed from the Kunlun mountain, emitting the aura of the human Tao and entered the bodies of Taoist priest Ziyun and Taoist priest Donghua. It was the destiny of the human race that had been snatched away by the Grand Pure One. At that moment, the 20% of providence had been split into 2 by the Grand Pure One, and entered the bodies of Taoist Ziyun and Taoist Donghua at the same time. Rumble! In an instant, the aura of the 2 of them skyrocketed. Very quickly, they stepped into the full circle of the Great Sage Realm from the early stages of the Great Sage Realm, becoming true powerful beings. Aha! As soon as their overall strength skyrocketed, both of them threw their attacks at the numerous Taoist priests of the human race without hesitation. Terrifying divine abilities erupted from their hands and destroyed all the divine abilities thrown at them. At the same time, a powerful chaotic aura erupted from God's body. It enveloped an area of several million miles, blotting out the sky. Everyone's divine abilities had just arrived when they were swallowed by the chaos chi that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. They didn't even cause a single ripple. Seeing this, the group of Taoist priests of the human race flew into a rage. They were about to unleash their Tao bodies and form the cosmic light formation of the galaxy to fight to the death. However, at that moment, Feng Zichen's ethereal voice suddenly sounded in their ears. All of you, retreat. There's no need to fight with them pointlessly. It's better to head to the chaos beyond the heavens as soon as possible and capture Khanate ferocious beasts for the human race. Remember, while ensuring your own safety, if there's a chance to capture a Khanate ferocious beast alive, do your best to do so. Don't be afraid of losses. Compared to capturing a Khanate ferocious beast alive, any loss is worth it. At the end, Feng Zichen's voice became softer and softer until it disappeared. This! Everyone looked at each other. Although they didn't understand what the human emperor meant, they couldn't disobey the human emperor's orders. Therefore, everyone glared at the rebel army and said, "Humph, you guys are really lucky this time." A connate ferocious beast happened to appear and saved your lives. Otherwise, at this point, everyone sneered and left one after another, heading to the chaos beyond the heavens to prepare for battle. Although they didn't say anything threatening in the end, everyone knew that it wasn't anything good. Seeing that the connate Taoist priests had left, the rebel army couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. With the Taoist priests around, they couldn't see any hope of winning at all. All they had was endless despair. Now that they had finally left, the huge burden on the rebel army's heart was gone. Of course they could relax. Attacking the ancestral land of the human race was just around the corner. As for the Taoist priests' threats, as long as they won the final victory and held high positions, the human Taoist priests wouldn't be able to do anything to them for the time being, no matter how strong they were. Moreover, after controlling the fate of the human race, it was hard to say who was stronger between them and the Taoist priests. Tisese, have they finally made their move? In the human emperor's palace, Feng Zichen's eyes lit up when he saw the 20% of the human race's fate that was added to ancestor Hong Yun and the East Wang Gong. This was his chance to take back the 20% of the human race's fate. As long as he defeated the two of them, the 20% of the human race's fate that the Grand Pure One had taken away would not only flow back to the human race, but it would also bring the fate of the ancient powerhouses who had reincarnated into the human race's fate. With this, the fate of the human race would undoubtedly increase by a lot. This was good fortune. Judging from the current situation of the human race, their fate had almost reached its peak. There was basically no possibility of them becoming stronger on their own. If they wanted to continue pretending to be strong, they could only devour the fate of other races. However, devouring the fate of other races was not that simple. Other than making them take the initiative to submit, they could only suppress them with force. However, they could suppress them with force. Now, there were many powerful beings who were dissatisfied with the human race. However, they couldn't find a suitable reason to attack the human race. If the human race took the initiative to start a war and attack other races, wouldn't that be a reason to come knocking on their door? At that time, the saint would raise his arm and call for help. The human race would become the public enemy of the world. If it really developed to this extent, even if the human race was the protagonist of the world, they would not be able to escape the fate of defeat. Since they could not take the initiative to attack, they could only wait passively for others to submit. This was much more difficult than suppressing them with force. Even Feng Zichen could not think of a way to do this in a short time. However, now, he did not need to think of a way. The saint had taken the initiative to send him fate. The fate of the ancient powerhouses who had reincarnated into the human race was not a small number. It was comparable to several powerful races. At the very least, it could increase the fate of the human race by 5% or even 10%. How could he not take the benefits that were sent to him? Therefore, Feng Zichen allowed these rebels to grow stronger. Now, the stronger they were, the more fate they would accumulate. When Feng Zichen finally set things right, they would be able to obtain more benefits. As for going overboard, it did not exist. If it really went overboard, Feng Zichen would directly reveal his trump card and release the human Dao Imperial Court. With the fate of the ancient human race, he would pour the fate of the human race into the fate of the current human race. He would stabilize the universe in one fell swoop and sweep away all the turmoil. If the human Dao Imperial Court was not enough, he still had the Heavenly Fiend Path, the Yin Court, and the Myriad Realms Trading City. Feng Zichen, am the biggest old schemer in the primordial world. I have the human emperor, the great emperor of Ziwei, the great emperor of North Star, the great emperor of Fengdu, the great emperor of the South Pole, and a series of other identities, as well as an unimaginable layout. With countless trump cards, how could he go overboard? Wasn't this a joke? With so many trump cards, any few of them could calm the current chaos of the human race in one fell swoop. Looking outside and seeing that the rebel army had already begun to attack the city, Feng Zichen could not help but shake his head. The rebel army's attack was very strong. If he did not send volunteers, those divine cities would not be able to be defended. The divine cities were very powerful, but they had a flaw, and that was that they did not attack the inside. What did that mean? In other words, if there were foreign invaders, the power of the divine cities would be fully unleashed to resist the invasion of foreign enemies or to kill foreign enemies. However, if a civil war broke out among the human race, the power of the divine cities would not be activated. Compared to ordinary cities, there was no difference except that it was a little harder. Why was there such a setting? Of course, it was because Feng Zichen had deliberately set it up. If he did not do so, when the power of the divine cities was unleashed, how could the rebel army attack? Without the Daluo Taoist priests, who could break through the defenses of the divine cities? In this way, even if the Daluo Taoist priests left, the rebel army would still not be able to advance. Then, how could Feng Zichen carry out his next plan? These were all living fates. How could he give them up? In order to give the rebel army a chance to attack the ancestral land of the human race, Feng Zichen had really put in a lot of effort. Retracting his gaze from the rebel army, Feng Zichen looked at the heavenly realm that overlapped with the human territory. At this moment, after being nourished by the earth chi of the human territory and nurtured by the origin of countless experts, the heavenly realm could be put to use although it had not been fully opened. Seeing this, Feng Zichen's expression changed slightly, and he called for one of his trusted aides. He took out the 10,000 god painting and ordered the aide. Pass down my order. Gather all the skilled craftsmen of the human race and build a 10,000 god platform outside the Emperor's city based on the layout of the Gaochen Celestial Palace. Then, when the 10,000 god platform is completed, stick this painting on it. With that, Feng Zichen handed the 10,000 god painting to the aide. Building the 10,000 god platform and taking out the 10,000 god painting meant that he was about to become a god. At this point in the war, it was time for the curtains to become a god. Yes, your majesty. After the aide took the 10,000 god painting, he left to gather people to build the 10,000 god platform. 3 Sex, your doomsday has arrived. After the aide left, Feng Zichen looked at the distant sky and said with some anticipation, the 3 realms of heaven, earth, and man would form a god together. How many lives would the 3 sects have to use to fill it up? Moreover, at this point in the war, the agreement in the Purple Cloud Palace could be said to be completely invalid. Who would be on the list, who would be carefree, and who would be destroyed in body and soul? The saints did not count. It all depended on their own abilities. Oh right. The 3 sects here referred to Chan sect, Jie sect, and Western sect, not Chan sect, Jie sect, and Ren sect. There were only 2 people in the entire Ren sect. This God-conferment tribulation had nothing to do with them. It was most suitable for the Western sect to replace the Ren sect. Who asked them to have more people? This God-conferment tribulation was destined from the beginning. Whoever had more disciples would be at a disadvantage. The human emperor had ordered to gather all the skilled craftsmen in the world to build the 10,000 god platform. As soon as the order was issued, the world was in an uproar. Many skilled craftsmen moved and rushed to the human emperor city through the teleportation flying ship. Even many people from the Gaochen Heavenly Palace came to the mortal world. Although they did not know what the 10,000 god platform was, they knew that it was the human emperor's order. If they succeeded, wouldn't they show their faces in front of the human emperor? If they were lucky enough to be remembered by the human emperor, they would really be like carps leaping through the dragon gate. From then on, it would not be difficult for them to achieve the Tao. Everyone knew that the human emperor's talent was recognized as the best in the primordial world. Even Tao ancestor Hongjun and Donghuang Tai, the 2 strongest heavens primordial age and the strongest heavens primordial age, had to admit defeat in front of him and admit that they could not compare with him in terms of talent. If they could be valued by such a person and have a cultivation technique tailored for them, it would not be difficult for them to become Taoist priests. One had to know that in the legends of the human race, the Saint Emperor Zichen clan was best at nurturing experts. In ancient times the human race was weak and at the bottom of the primordial world. However, under his leadership, the human race became one of the strongest races in the primordial world and gave birth to countless experts. In the end, under his leadership, the human race even threatened the demon race's rule. As a result, the demon race's leader, Di Jun, who was the celestial emperor at the time, personally led an army to attack the human race and destroyed the glorious ancient human civilization. It had to be said that legends were legends. The more they spread, the more they changed. It was undeniable that the ancient human race was not weak. However, it was a bit of a stretch to say that they threatened the demon race's rule. The truth was that the ancient human race could not withstand a single blow from the ancient demon race. However, the current human race did not believe it. Our human race is so strong. How could we be easily defeated by the demon race? We must have gone through a bloody battle before we were unfortunately defeated by the demon race's conspiracy. This caused our glorious civilization to decline. Pui, The demon race is really despicable. It was no wonder that the current human race thought so. Looking around, the demon race in the primordial world had already become the food of the human race, let alone fighting against the human race. Looking at the current human race, how could the current human race's younger generation believe that the ancient human race was once beaten by the demon race? It was impossible. How could people who had never experienced that era know the horror of the ancient demon race? Turning a weak race into a strong race in the primordial world. This method was really fascinating. Of course, if this method was used on an individual, that person would not be able to fly. It was said that more than half of the current connate Taoist priests of the human race were nurtured by the human emperor. As long as the human emperor liked them, they would definitely become Taoist priests. Everyone came here to be noticed by the human emperor so that they could fight for a brilliant future. As for the human emperor being seriously injured, regardless of whether the saint really believed it or not, they did not believe it. Chapter 782. Their sage emperor loved faking his death the most. It was possible that his heavy injuries this time were also an act. The sage emperor was a wily old fox. Ahem, wise and mighty. How could he be tricked by a saint? This serious injury was definitely an act. His true self was hiding in the human emperor palace. He must be secretly plotting something. Perhaps, the old man was staring at this place. Thinking of this, everyone subconsciously puffed out their chests and perked up. They had to perform well later to leave a good impression on the sage emperor. A human from the Gauchan Heavenly Palace brought the blueprint of the Myriad God platform. Everyone built the Myriad God platform according to the blueprint. The next step was much simpler. Many skilled craftsmen of the human race worked together. Soon, a huge Myriad God platform was built outside the human emperor city. After the Myriad God platform was built, Feng Zichen's trusted aide remembered his orders. He walked up to the Myriad God platform and respectfully hung the Myriad God portrait on it. Strangely, after the Myriad God portrait came to the Myriad God platform, it floated to the center of the platform and slowly opened. In an instant, endless divine light spewed out from the Myriad God portrait. It was extremely dazzling and enveloped the entire human race. Then, information about becoming a god naturally appeared in the minds of all living beings. When the Myriad God portrait opened, anyone with merit, regardless of whether they had cultivated in life or not, could enter the role of gods after death. They could either protect an area for the mountain god or the earth god, protect the people for the kitchen god, or govern an area for the city god. In short, the Myriad God portrait had all kinds of deity positions. It covered all the daily needs of the human race. There was no need to worry about not finding a suitable deity position. Anyone with merit could enter the role of gods as long as they were willing. They could cultivate the divine path of incense and accumulate merit. If they accumulated enough merit in the future, they could directly become a righteous god of heaven and earth. They would receive the providence of heaven and earth and wield the power of heaven and earth. They could also directly reincarnate with their merit and start all over again. If a cultivator of the divine path performed well during their reign, they would receive the protection of all living beings when they reincarnated. Not only would they be free from the mystery of being in the womb, but they would also be able to avoid all demons. He could easily achieve results without any worries or disasters in his life. This was the biggest difference between the gods of the Myriad Gods painting and the gods of the investiture of the gods. The former was a free being, a divine spirit of the human Tao. The latter was enslaved by humans, a righteous god of heaven and earth. One belonged to the human Tao while the other belonged to the heavenly Tao. The difference was clear. Of course, the heaven and earth righteous gods on the investiture of the gods could be supported by the power of heaven and earth. Their strength was far superior to the gods on the Myriad Gods painting, but they didn't have freedom. Whether it was good or bad was hard to say. It all depended on the thoughts of the people on the list. As soon as the news of godhood spread, the high-level cultivators were still fine, but the low-level cultivators and ordinary people became excited. Based on the current situation of the human race, those who were still unable to set foot on the path of cultivation had to have terrible talent. Even if they were not born with spiritual chi, they were not far from it. It was almost impossible for such a person to cultivate. However, the appearance of the Myriad Gods diagram had given them another choice. That was the incense divine Tao. If he couldn't absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, then wouldn't he be able to absorb the power of faith? If he absorbed the power of faith and became a human Tao god, he would still be able to grow stronger. Moreover, he would be able to accumulate merit. This was another path of transcendence. How could ordinary mortals not be excited? It was human nature to pursue extraordinary power. As for the low-level cultivators, they were even more excited than ordinary people. Low-level cultivators were people whose cultivation levels were not high enough and whose potential had been exhausted. It would be very difficult for them to improve in the future. These people had no future and couldn't see any room for improvement. They had long despaired. However, the appearance of the myriad gods diagram allowed them to see another path of advancement. How could they not be excited? Whether it was the immortal Tao or the martial Tao, neither was enough for them to improve. Since that was the case, they were willing to try the incense divine Tao. After all, their situation was already like this. It didn't matter if they failed. These low-level cultivators were different from ordinary humans. They had already tasted the joy of power. Therefore, their pursuit of power was even more intense than that of ordinary humans. Good, the opportunity had come. The key now was, how would he obtain merit? Not everyone had merit on their bodies. If he couldn't obtain great merit, he could only start with small things. And that was doing good deeds. Not to mention other things, doing good deeds would definitely give him merit. The more good deeds he did, the more merit he would obtain. For a time, the human race set off a huge competition to do good deeds. Not long after Feng Zichen ordered people to post the myriad gods diagram, Great Emperor Ziwei, Heavenly Emperor, and Great Emperor of the South Pole in the Heavenly Court seemed to have sensed it. They jointly took out the investiture of the gods and hung it on the southern heavenly gate. Once the investiture of the gods was out, the immortal god calamity began. In the blink of an eye, monstrous tribulation aura spread out from the void. Soon, it spread to every corner of the chaos realm. At this time, all those who cultivated the postnatal Tao sensed that the immortal god calamity had arrived. If they wanted to take another step forward, they had to step into the mortal world and transcend the tribulation. If they passed it, everything would be fine. They would be free for an eternity. If they couldn't, everything would be over. They would die and their souls would be destroyed. If they faced the tribulation and their souls entered the investiture of the gods, although they were lucky to not die, they would have no fate with the immortal Tao. In the future, they would belong to the divine Tao and enjoy the status of a righteous god. They seemed to be immortal, but they would be enslaved by others. It would be miserable. When the immortal god calamity began, although the immortals were helpless, they couldn't refuse. They had no choice but to take out their weapons and enter the mortal world to transcend the tribulation. Transcending the tribulation now? Since it was a killing tribulation, they naturally had to kill to transcend the tribulation. This time, when the immortals entered the mortal world, they were destined to set off a bloody storm. They would kill until the immortals cried blood. Only in this way could they survive the killing tribulation. As soon as the immortal god calamity broke out, the 5 saints, who had long been prepared, immediately arranged for their disciples to enter the mortal world to transcend the tribulation and assist the destined Son of Heaven to obtain the position of the human emperor. Under the orders of the 3 pure ones, except for Yun Zhongzi and perfected Lord Dao Da, the rest of the disciples of the Chan school all left Kunlun Mountain to assist the East King, Taoist Dong Hua, to compete for the position of the human emperor. As for the disciples of the Jie school, except for the 4 personal disciples who had previously helped the human clan, the 3 pure ones, and more than a dozen other intersect disciples, the rest of the disciples all left the East Sea to assist the East King of the human clan, Taoist Dong Hua. There were more than 10,000 disciples of the Jie school. The scene of 10,000 immortals leaving the East Sea together really alarmed many people. Unfortunately, their trip was destined to be a tragedy from the very beginning. Although they were in high spirits at the moment, after the war, those who could really return here were probably more than 10. While the 3 pure ones sent their disciples to assist the East King, the 2 sages of the West did not fall behind. They opened the mountain gate and sent their disciples to assist the West King, Taoist Ziyun. Moreover, the 2 sages of the West were very cunning. They felt that it was not safe to only send their disciples, so they had to add more chips to Taoist Ziyun. Therefore the 2 of them came up with some ideas. It was unknown where the 2 of them got the connate phoenix chi from. Through it, they used a secret technique to forcibly extract a trace of the Phoenix clan's destiny and added it to Taoist Ziyun. Because of this, the Phoenix ancestor was furious. She came to the world at all costs and personally rushed to the West to find trouble with the 2 sages of the West. The two sages of the West were in the wrong and naturally did not dare to meet the Phoenix ancestor. They found an excuse to hide. They knew that the Phoenix ancestor could not stay in the world for a long time in her state. As long as they delayed for a while, the Phoenix ancestor's power would be exhausted and she would naturally leave. Their idea was quite good. Unfortunately, they forgot that as the former ruler of the world, the Phoenix ancestor was not easy to deal with. Unable to find the two sages of the West, the Phoenix ancestor was furious and burned Mount Meru to vent her anger. Only then did she swagger away. The Phoenix ancestor's Nirvana heavenly fire was also known as the inextinguishable heavenly fire. It was powerful enough to be ranked in the top 3 in the primitive world. It was said that it could even ignite all connate das. Its power could be imagined. Once the Nirvana heavenly fire fell into Mount Meru, it burned everything it saw, whether it was soil, stone, or water. As long as it existed, it could become its fuel. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, the Nirvana heavenly fire spread to the entire Mount Meru. As for the protective mountain array of Mount Meru, it had been burned by the Nirvana heavenly fire long ago and became one of its main fuel. Due to their fear of the Phoenix ancestor, even if Mount Meru was burned, the two of them did not dare to come out. They could only watch as the Nirvana heavenly fire spread and burned inch by inch on Mount Meru. After the Phoenix ancestor vented her anger and left Mount Meru, the two sages of the West hurriedly ran out to put out the fire. Unfortunately, the Nirvana heavenly fire was still too powerful. By the time Xianxia and Jane put out the fire, Mount Meru had been burned to a barren land. Nothing on the mountain was left. Everything was burned to ashes. Mount Meru, which was originally shining with divine light, was now pitch black like a huge piece of black coal. Fortunately, the disciples and the main treasures on the mountain had been moved away by the two of them in advance. Otherwise, the Western sect would have lost more than that. It would have been enough to make the two sages of the Western sect vomit blood. However, even so, the two sages of the Western sect had lost a lot of face this time. Their mountain gate had been burned. How could they not be embarrassed? Fortunately, the two of them were already used to the destruction of their mountain gate and did not care too much. It had to be said that Mount Meru was quite unlucky. There were only 2 owners in total, but each one was worse than the other. First, it was destroyed once by the demon ancestor Luo Ho. Then, it was destroyed several times by the West sect. The two of them were already used to it. They had also repaired Mount Meru. From this, it could be seen how many times Mount Meru had been destroyed. This was the divine mountain in the primordial world, second only to Mount Kunlun. It was the ancestral mountain of the West. The most miserable sacred mountain in the primordial world was Mount Meru. It was the most miserable. After Mount Meru was destroyed, the two sages of the Western sect were heartbroken. Why did they take the risk of offending the Phoenix ancestor and forcibly extract the fate of the Phoenix clan and bless Taoist Ziyun? Did they still remember the image of the Shang dynasty's fate? The destined Xian bird descended and gave birth to the Shang dynasty. The image of the Shang dynasty's fate was the Xian bird. The Xian bird was one of the 5 phoenixes. It was one of the descendants of the phoenix. Before Feng Zichen became the human emperor, he was the son of the Shang emperor. Although in the end, he replaced the Xian bird with Xianxia and reset the universe. However, it was undeniable that there was more or less a trace of the Xian bird's aura in the current human clan's fate. The two sages of the Western sect had sensed the aura of the Xian bird. That was why they had coveted the fate of the Phoenix clan. That was what they thought. Although the Xian bird was strong, it was still weaker than the Phoenix clan. In this way, they could transform Taoist Ziyun's fate into the image of the Phoenix clan. Wouldn't they be able to suppress the human emperor? It had to be said that the two sages of the Western sect were really geniuses. They could even come up with such an idea. It was indeed as they thought. If the image of Taoist Ziyun's fate appeared in the form of the Phoenix clan, it could indeed restrain the Xian bird. Although it was only a trivial trace, there was no room for error in the battle of the Great Path. If they could take advantage of it, they would take advantage of it. Because the point that they did not care about might become the last straw that broke the camel's back in the end. It would become the key to victory. This, on Mount Kunlun, the 3 pure ones saw the performance of the two sages of the Western sect. The expressions on their faces were extremely interesting. They did not expect that there would be someone who was so shrewd that they would not let go of even the slightest opportunity. Hiss! In the human emperor's palace, Feng Zichen saw the performance of the two sages of the Western sect and could not help but gasp. The two of them were so terrifying that they really could not be kept alive. This time, he had really met his match. This shrewdness was half of his style. Unfortunately, he really had too many backup plans, so many that he could not bear to use them to bully the other party. Otherwise, with just the two sages of the Western sect's move, Feng Zichen would have to find a way to break the situation now. But there were no ifs in reality. Feng Zichen, who had countless trump cards, was now sitting calmly on the fishing platform, watching the performance of the five sages unhurriedly. In this wave, he was already invincible. Countless years of painstaking calculations were not in vain. All of them were revealed at this moment, becoming his invincible capital. Unless Pangu came back to life and stood on the side of the three pure ones, Feng Zichen would never fail. Even if Dao ancestor Hong Jun came, Feng Zichen would not hesitate to use the Dharma of Pangu standing in the primitive world to fight him back. Oh, I'm so confident. Invincible. The three pure ones sent their disciples to support Dong Wang Kung, and the impact was not so simple. It should be known that this time, not only the disciples of the three sects needed to enter the world to pass the tribulation, but also all the cultivators who cultivated the acquired path. There were more than hundreds of millions of cultivators in the world. The number was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Among them, how many were the disciples and disciples of the three pure ones? Feng Zichen did not know, and neither did the three pure ones, but they all knew that this number was definitely beyond their imagination. Because the entire acquired path was built by the three pure ones. If one really wanted to trace the source, few acquired path cultivators could not be related to the three pure ones. Now, the three pure ones had made it clear that they wanted to support Taoist Donghua, and the impact on these cultivators could be imagined. Chapter 783. Apart from some cultivators who wanted to settle their personal grudges, most of the remaining cultivators chose to seek refuge with East King Taoist Donghua after hesitating for a while, intending to fight for a future with him. Not all cultivators thought that the investiture of the gods was a cage. Many cultivators dreamed of entering the investiture of the gods. After becoming immortal, wasn't the pursuit of immortality? However, immortality was difficult to prove. Most golden immortals could not reach the threshold of the Daluo Taoist priests, even if they spent their entire lives. Therefore, the alternative immortality brought about by leaving their names on the investiture of the gods became the pursuit of these cultivators. Those who sought the Tao were not afraid of death. Those who sought immortality were most afraid of death. After receiving the help of the itinerant immortals, Taoist Donghua's power could be said to have expanded rapidly. Soon, it surpassed the forces of the other two rebel leaders and left them far behind. A single itinerant immortal might not be strong, but when the power of most itinerant immortals was combined, the power that erupted would make even saints look askance. It might not be stronger than the Jie school, but it was definitely stronger than the Chan school. The East King Taoist Donghua had the help of the three pure ones, while the West King Taoist Ziyun had the help of the two sages of the West. What did the South King God have? He had the help of the Chaos Fiend God. Silently, the majestic Chaos Essence Qi spread in the territory of the South King God, causing the living beings there to slowly become stronger. Not only the human clan, but all living beings bathed in the Chaos Essence Qi, regardless of whether they were flowers, trees, birds, beasts, fish, or insects, would obtain great benefits. This was because this was the Qi of all creation, which was better than the Qi of heaven and earth. However, the purpose of releasing the Chaos Essence Qi was not to strengthen the living beings under his command. This was just a side effect. His real purpose was to strengthen the connate ferocious beasts under his command. That's right. Connate ferocious beasts. They were not connate ferocious beasts from the chaos, but connate ferocious beasts born in the untainted land. As long as heaven and earth existed, there would be endless ferocious beasts. Therefore, there was never a lack of connate ferocious beasts in the untainted land. However, after a few massacres, even if the connate ferocious beasts could reproduce, their vitality would be greatly damaged. From their original state where they could be seen everywhere, they were reduced to rare species in the primeval age. If it weren't for the fact that the heaven and earth had been nurturing Xiantian ferocious beasts, this race would have been wiped out long ago. It was precisely because of this that Feng Zichen set his sights elsewhere. He looked down on the connate ferocious beasts in the untainted world. They were too weak and too few. But he didn't like it, but God did. Well, it wasn't that he was interested in them. It was mainly because in the current situation, he had no other way to improve the strength of his subordinates other than using the innate ferocious beasts. He saw that the forces of East King Daoist Donghua and West King Daoist Ziyun were constantly strengthening, while his force was still in place. He was about to be left far behind by the two of them. God is so anxious. He had no choice but to use his authority as a chaos fiend god to forcibly conscript tens of thousands of innate ferocious beasts. As soon as the chaos demon god gave the order, the inborn ferocious beasts dared not refuse. They immediately ran over. Tens of thousands of innate ferocious beasts were a large number, but their strength was unsightly. There were almost no Tai Jingxian beasts, and only 2 or 3 golden immortals. The rest were all Xian immortals and divine immortals, who were not very useful. Once again, God had no choice but to grit his teeth and dig out a piece of flesh from his broken body of the chaos demon god. He turned it into the purest chaotic vital energy and poured it into the bodies of these innate ferocious beasts, forcibly improving their realm. Fortunately, now that the Daluo Taoist priests were not around, God only needed to improve their strength to the level of Lord of Tai. Tens of thousands of innate ferocious beasts at the level of Lord of Tai were definitely an extremely powerful force. In this era when the Daluo Taoist priests were not around, they could almost sweep the world. After improving the strength of the innate ferocious beasts, God selected tens of thousands of warriors from his subordinates to control these innate ferocious beasts. They were called ferocious beast riders. No matter how bold God was, he could not directly release tens of thousands of innate ferocious beasts to attack the divine city of the human clan. Otherwise, the human clan and the rebel army would join hands to kill him first. Innate ferocious beasts were the public enemies of the untainted land. Once they were discovered, all the creatures in the untainted land had the obligation to kill them. Under such circumstances, 1 or 2 innate ferocious beasts might not be a big deal, but once the innate ferocious beasts formed a large scale, what awaited them would be the joint strangulation of the untainted land masters. Therefore, in the untainted land, there were very few innate ferocious beasts in a large scale. God was determined to be the human emperor, so it was even more impossible for him to do such a heinous thing. Therefore, God thought for a long time and came up with a wonderful idea. He turned the innate ferocious beasts into the mounts of his subordinates and formed a powerful cavalry. After becoming the mounts, their lives were controlled by their masters, and the innate ferocious beasts became controllable. In this way, when they formed a large scale, the world had no reason to attack them. He was really a clever little ghost. After solving the problem of the innate ferocious beasts, God's power rose and became the power second only to the East King among the 3 rebel armies. The invincible innate ferocious beast cavalry was the capital of the righteous God to dominate the world. The West King, Taoist Ziyun, became the weakest of the 3. However, Taoist Ziyun did not care at all. Although he was the weakest, he had the closest relationship with the human clan. He was the natural human emperor. Now, Taoist Ziyun was waiting. He was waiting for the 3 sides to kill each other and exhaust each other. When all 3 sides were defeated and injured, it would be time for him to rise. Good fellow. Each one is better than the other. In the human emperor palace, Feng Zichen's eyes lit up when he saw God use innate ferocious beasts to create an invincible cavalry. This was a good idea. Why didn't he think of it? When the time was right, he would do the same and create an invincible cavalry. In terms of generosity, Feng Zichen was much more generous. If he wanted to make a move, it would not be as simple as Taoist Lord of Tai. At the very least, it would be Taoist priests who were half a step away from Daluo. Looking again, Feng Zichen found that the East King Kung and the Chaos Demon God were showing signs of attacking the city. He ordered, "Inform the soldiers guarding the city. If they can hold the city, then do it. If they can't, then abandon it. Return to the ancestral land of the human clan first. The battle between us is not about the loss of a city or a land, but about the game with the upper class. In short, if you can't win, then retreat. Return to the ancestral land of the human clan first and preserve your useful bodies for the final battle." After receiving Feng Zichen's order, the soldiers guarding the city immediately understood that His Majesty had a big plan and was ready to trick them. As for being scared? What a joke. In front of the 3 saints, the Saint Emperor dared to fight to the death. How could such a person be scared? Wouldn't that be a joke? After receiving Feng Zichen's order, the soldiers guarding the city felt confident and no longer had any burdens. They planned to have fun with the rebel army. The plan was carried out boldly, as if defending the city was not a big deal. Indeed, it was not a big deal. Since His Majesty had given the order that they did not need to defend the city, they naturally wanted to have fun. Faced with the soldiers guarding the city who had completely let themselves go, the rebel army was very unlucky. Although they had taken down many cities, they were also covered in dirt and suffered heavy losses. Just as the battle between the two sides became more and more intense, the Netherworld, which had been silent for many years, finally moved. In the center of the Netherworld, in Fengdu City, the Ghost Emperor of Fengdu took out the ghost sealing roll and handed it to his trusted general. He asked him to lead the army to the exit of the Netherworld and stick the roll on the gate of hell to accept the heroic spirits of the past and present. His subordinate received the order and led the army to the gate of hell in a grandiose manner. He then stuck the ghost sealing roll on the gate of hell. Whoosh! The ghost sealing roll opened wide, and countless mysterious runes appeared. They reflected a faint cold light, causing the already cold and desolate Netherworld to become even colder. Boom! In the next moment, monstrous Chi spread out and surged out from the ghost sealing roll. It poured into the human world, and in an instant, it spread across the entire primordial land. In an instant, thousands of ghosts sensed it and let out mournful ghost howls. They swept up gusts of wind and swept towards the Netherworld. These were all heroic spirits who had died in battle. Although they were dead, their fighting spirit was not extinguished. They had turned into indestructible heroic spirits that lingered in the world. Originally, when the murderous chi on these heroic spirits was almost worn away, the investiture of the gods would descend and lead them into the heavenly realm, turning them into heavenly soldiers to guard the heavenly court. But now, with the appearance of the ghost sealing roll, after sensing the aura of these indestructible heroic spirits, it directly put these heroic spirits away and prepared to turn them into soldiers to guard the court. In other words, these indestructible heroic spirits had no fate with the investiture of the gods. Such a huge commotion caused by the ghost sealing roll naturally alarmed the saints on Mount Kunlun. What does the Netherworld want to do? Opening their eyes, the 5 saints looked in the direction of the Netherworld with gloomy eyes. With the addition of the ghost sealing roll, the power of the investiture of the gods would be stronger. At the same time, the saints would suffer more losses. This was because the names on the roll had to be filled with the lives of their disciples. The 5 saints were furious. They really wanted to kill the Netherworld and tear the ghost sealing roll into pieces. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Even saints had to think about the overall situation. Now, with a great enemy outside, the 9 chaos demon gods swaggered in the chaos beyond the heavens. It was not the time to start a civil war. Otherwise, if anything went wrong, they would be the sinners of the primordial world. You're lucky to have come at the right time. We'll let you off this time. In the future, we'll settle the karma. The 5 saints looked coldly in the direction of the Netherworld and withdrew their gazes. This time, they temporarily gave up on breaking into the Netherworld to settle the score with the Ghost Emperor of Fengdu for the sake of the overall situation. However, this did not mean that this matter would be over just like that. The 5 saints were petty and very vengeful. There would be more trouble in the future. This matter was not over. Feng Zichen did not care about what the 5 saints thought at all. In fact, he could not even be bothered to care about the 3 rebel armies attacking and seizing territory. Because there was no need. In his eyes, the various cultivation bases of the rebel armies were like children playing around. They were all under his control, so how could they attract his attention? Just as Feng Zichen had planned, the human army retreated in defeat, constantly losing territory and retreating. The 3 allied armies pressed forward step by step, attacking and seizing territory along the way, gradually forcing their way to the ancestral land of the human race. They won so easily that even the 3 rebel armies sensed that something was wrong. However, they had no choice. Even if they knew that it was a trap, they had to grit their teeth and step on it. At this time, there was no possibility of retreat. They could only grit their teeth and continue forward. Moreover, Taoist Dong Hua and the other 2 also vaguely understood what Feng Zichen's plan was. He was shrinking his strength and concentrating his main force in the ancestral land of the human race. Then, he was preparing to kill the 3 of them in one fell swoop during the decisive battle, so as to reorganize the mountains and rivers and stabilize the world. This plan was very good, but how could the three of them let Feng Zichen have his way? Feng Zichen was accumulating strength, but the three of them were also accumulating strength. When they attacked the ancestral land of the human race, it was not certain who would be stronger. At this moment, there was still some time before the decisive battle. As long as they accumulated enough strength during this period of time, the scales of victory would tip in their favor. The three of them working together would not be unable to defeat the human emperor, right? The human emperor was powerful, and the three of them were natural allies. They agreed to work together to fight against the human emperor. After the human emperor fell, who among the three of them would rule the world would depend on their own abilities. Feng Zichen did not know what the three of them were thinking. If he knew, he would probably laugh his head off. Children, you are still too naive. Do you think that the ancestral land of the human race contains all of his strength? He was wrong, and he was gravely wrong. The human race in the ancestral land of the human race had never been Feng Zichen's trump card, nor was it his strongest power. The ancestral land of the human race was just the tip of the iceberg of Feng Zichen's strength. But even so, the three of them were forced to go all out. It was really sad. They thought that they had seen hope, but they did not know that at the end of that hope, there was endless despair hidden. Since the beginning of the war, almost every once in a while, there would be immortals who unfortunately died and their souls returned to the investiture of the gods. And these were only those who were qualified to return to the investiture of the gods. Those who were not qualified to be on the investiture of the gods died even more. In just a few decades, countless immortals had died. Red blood constantly flowed from the corpses of the immortals and gods, forming rivers of blood that dyed the primitive land red. Between heaven and earth, there was a smell of blood everywhere. Of course, because of the large-scale death of the immortals and gods, more and more origins returned to heaven and earth, and the spiritual chi between heaven and earth became more and more active and rich. If one could ignore the blood-stained mountains and rivers, in a trance, one would think that a golden age had arrived. A golden age stained with blood. It was believed that when the calamity was over, heaven and earth would usher in a golden age of cultivation. This was what it meant to abolish and rebuild. However, Feng Zichen no longer paid attention to heaven and earth. Because at this moment, the attention of the great masters, including him and the saints, was no longer in the primitive world, but in the chaos outside the heavens. Chapter 784. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Countless primordial ferocious beasts began to attack the untainted land under the orders of the 9 chaos demon gods. After 100 years of gathering, the untainted land had recruited more than 3,000 Daluo Taoist priests to form a solid line of defense in front of the boundless starry sky to resist the invasion of the primordial ferocious beasts. To be honest, the untainted land had indeed declined. All the Daluo Taoist priests added up to only about 4,000. This number was only comparable to that of the demon clan at its peak. This decline was a little scary. It could not be ruled out that there were still some Daluo Taoist priests hiding in the untainted land and did not respond to the summons. But even if there were some Daluo Taoist priests hiding, how many could there be? Even if there were 1,000 of them. In total, there were only about 5,000 of them. This number of Daluo Taoist priests was undoubtedly much lower than the number of Daluo Taoist priests at its peak in the untainted land. Looking at the 4,000 Daluo Taoist priests in front of them, they were not happy at all. Instead, they felt that it was over. The untainted land was going downhill. In the long run, the cultivation environment would become more and more difficult. Under such circumstances, could the world still nurture a new Daluo Jinxian of the primordial chaos? Thinking of this, many great mediums could not help but be covered with a layer of haze in their hearts. As for those who had become Daluo Jinxian of the primordial chaos, although they were not worried, they were also in a bad mood. Looking at the primordial ferocious beasts, which numbered no less than 10,000 Taoist priests, and then looking at the less than 4,000 Daluo Taoist priests on their side, no one would be in a good mood. The gap was really too big. 4,000 against 10,000. No matter how he looked at it, he was bound to lose. He had to take some measures. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome if the primordial fierce beasts really rushed into the untainted land. According to the bet, any place that had been ravaged by innate stage ferocious beasts would become the territory of the chaos demon god. How could he allow others to sleep peacefully beside his bed? Just the thought of being neighbors with a chaos fiend god was enough to make one's scalp numb. None of the people present were willing to do so. Even Saint Jiayin, a descendant of chaos fiend god, was unwilling to be neighbors with chaos fiend god. In fact, compared to Feng Zichen and the rest, the two of them were even more hostile towards the chaos demon celestial. They were afraid. They were afraid that one day, the chaos demon god would choose to devour them in order to recover his strength. As the descendants of the chaos demon god, their existence itself was the greatest tonic for the chaos demon god who gave birth to them. As long as he devoured them, he could plunder everything from them and recover a lot of his origin. Therefore the two saints, who were unwilling to work for other people, hated the chaos fiend gods so much that they couldn't wait for them to die. Looking at the innate stage ferocious beasts rushing over, everyone frowned subconsciously. They expected that there would be many innate stage ferocious beasts, but they didn't expect that there would be so few Daluo Taoist priests on their side. Therefore, they couldn't think of a solution at the moment. As for asking the great medium to take action, the chaos fiend god only sent innate stage ferocious beasts at the level of Taoist priests. His meaning was already very obvious. This battle stopped with the Daluo Taoist priests. The existences above were not allowed to intervene. Otherwise, this battle would evolve into an unprecedented war. Seeing that everyone really couldn't think of a solution, Feng Zichen frowned in the human emperor palace. After hesitating for a moment, he took the immortal dragon city from the territory of the human clan and placed it in the outer chaos, turning it into an invincible line of defense to help the Taoist priests protect the untainted land. Seeing this, even the 5 saints who were extremely dissatisfied with Feng Zichen couldn't help but lower their noble heads and thank Feng Zichen. Taoist Gaochen is so righteous that we are far inferior to you. Hearing this, Feng Zichen in the human emperor palace just curled his lips in disdain. Righteous or not, it was all bullshit. If he really wanted to thank him, why didn't he use practical actions to express his gratitude? For example, asking Taoist Donghua and Taoist Ziyun to surrender immediately? It was just a matter of saying something. Anyway, he didn't have to pay the price. It was just a gesture. How sincere could it be? As soon as the immortal dragon city appeared, the human clan Taoist priests among the 4,000 Taoist priests immediately sensed it. In a flash, they appeared above the immortal dragon city. As they moved, the cosmic light galaxy formation slowly unfolded and resonated with Zhoxing behind them, drawing in endless starlight and adding it to the immortal dragon city, raising its power to another level. Rumble, vast waves of energy erupted from the immortal dragon city, forming waves of ripples that swept forward like tides. In an instant, the ripples swept across and those connate ferocious beasts charging at the front were crushed into a mist of blood before they could even scream. Roar! After that, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded. In the sky above the immortal dragon city, the immortal divine dragon reappeared. Its body was endless, like a high and mighty god overlooking everything. The immortal dragon city wasn't an offensive magic treasure. It was a defensive magic treasure. The more people who used it, the more power it could unleash. With the support of the immortal dragon city, the defense of the 4,000 Daluo Taoist priests would at least double. It was comparable to 8,000 Daluo Taoist priests. In this way, the possibility of everyone defending the Eldritch world was greatly increased. Roar! The death of their own kind didn't cause any fear in the connate ferocious beasts. On the contrary, under the stimulation of fresh blood, the remaining connate ferocious beasts' ferocity seemed to have been stimulated. They all entered a frenzied state and fearlessly attacked the immortal dragon city. Above the immortal dragon city, the Taoist priests didn't hold back when they saw the connate ferocious beasts attacking. Those with power gathered together, such as the human clan, the sorcerer clan, the demon clan, and the connate clan, and formed their own formations to fight against the ferocious beasts. As for those without power, they used the immortal dragon city as a defense. They activated their natal magic treasures and attacked the connate ferocious beasts from afar. Regardless of whether they had power or not, everyone was silently using their own methods to protect the eldritch world that gave birth to them. An earth-shattering battle was about to begin. With such a great disparity in power, Feng Zichen, Zhuanti, and the others didn't want to capture the connate ferocious beasts alive. Now, they only wanted their subordinates to do their best to kill the connate ferocious beasts. They couldn't let them take half a step into the eldritch world. As soon as the battle began, it entered its most intense moment. Both sides used all their strength to kill each other. All kinds of magical treasures danced in the chaos, reflecting all kinds of light. It was gorgeous and moving. In a moment, the chaos beyond the heavens was dyed with blood. The torn flesh of the connate ferocious beasts and the remains of magical treasures were everywhere. The roaming chaos chi was gradually dyed with a layer of blood. The battle became more and more intense. Right at this moment, blood-colored altars appeared one after another silently. Hidden within the chaos chi, they continued to devour the flesh and blood around them. That was the blood altar. It was also where Feng Zichen thought they would win this battle. Once the blood altar devoured enough flesh and blood to purify, the Daluo Taoist priests of the human clan would be immortal like a saint. Then, the battle would be much simpler. They would just have to see who couldn't hold on first. Whoever couldn't hold on first would be the loser. The one who could hold on would win the final victory. Those creatures of the Eldritch world are interesting. They actually agreed to our suggestion. Don't they know that those connate ferocious beasts are endless to us? In the deepest part of the chaos beyond the heavens, the 9 chaos demon gods hiding here were laughing and discussing. They didn't care about the consumption of the connate ferocious beasts at all. That was because they could easily create connate ferocious beasts. Even the connate ferocious beasts at the level of the Daluo Taoist priests were the same. The chaos demon gods living in the chaos beyond the heavens could create tens of thousands of connate ferocious beasts with just one arm, and they were all at the level of the Daluo Taoist priests. If they added in natural treasures like the chaos divine stone, the number would be several times higher. Would the chaos demon gods living in the chaos beyond the heavens lack treasures like the chaos divine stone? Of course not. After living in the chaos beyond the heavens for so many years, these chaos demon gods didn't waste their time. Other than healing in seclusion, they spent the rest of their time collecting all kinds of magic treasures. After all, they weren't the only ones injured in the battle of splitting open the heavens. Their chaos spiritual treasures were also injured. They needed to devour all kinds of chaos divine objects. It was much easier for the chaos demon gods to find chaos divine objects in the chaos beyond the heavens than for Feng Zichen. After all, the chaos demon gods were also known as the sons of chaos. Wasn't it easy to find chaos divine objects? Because of this, the chaos demon gods all had a large number of chaos divine objects in their hands. This meant that as long as they were willing, they could create a large number of high-level connate ferocious beasts through the chaos divine objects with just a little bit of their origin. The number of chaos divine objects they could create depended on how many chaos divine objects they had. In that case, these connate ferocious beasts wouldn't be few. The 9 chaos demon gods probably weren't exaggerating when they said that there would be an endless supply. This time, the wilderness was really in danger. Dao ancestor Hongjuan's decision was a little hasty. But was that really the case? Would the cunning and resourceful Dao ancestor Hongjun really be schemed against by others? Time flew like an arrow, and the sun and moon shuttled back and forth. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. The battle in the chaos beyond the heavens was becoming more and more intense. At this moment, not only had the connate ferocious beasts suffered heavy casualties, but the wilderness had also seen blood. Huge cracks had appeared on the immortal dragon city. Although the immortal power was constantly repairing the cracks, the speed at which the cracks were expanding was far faster than the speed at which the immortal power was repairing it. This also caused the cracks on the immortal dragon city to be difficult to repair. The cracks on the immortal dragon city also indicated that there was a flaw in its invincible defense. Through these flaws, the connate ferocious beasts' attacks surged in like tidal waves, bringing great pressure to the wilderness Taoist priests. Gradually, Taoist priests were injured, and then Taoist priests were gradually unable to withstand the attacks. They were torn apart by the violent super skills, and their blood splattered everywhere. With the first Taoist priest falling, there would be a second, a third, and a fourth. Soon, dozens of Taoist priests had fallen. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, the wilderness tribes immediately took on the responsibilities that they should have. The wilderness tribes led by the human tribe, including the demon tribe, the sorcerer tribe, and the connate tribe, stepped forward bravely and blocked the immortal dragon city's flaws, facing the most dangerous situation directly. With the help of the human tribe and the other tribes, the pressure on the itinerant cultivators and the small tribes was greatly reduced. However, the pressure on the tribes multiplied. Especially the human tribe, they were facing the greatest pressure. Among the more than 4,000 connate Taoist priests present, The human tribe Taoist priests were the most numerous, but they weren't the strongest. It wasn't because of their realms, but because of their Dharma treasures. The human tribe Taoist priests were basically born after the Great War between the sorcerer tribe and the demon tribe, and missed the golden period of the wilderness. Most Taoist priests didn't have connate spiritual treasures. As for the other tribes such as the demon tribe, the sorcerer tribe, and the connate tribe, because they were born in the most glorious period of the wilderness, each of them had a connate spiritual treasure. On average, each of them had 2 connate spiritual treasures, let alone 1. This was the advantage of being born early, and the human tribe didn't enjoy it at all. But even so, the human tribe still gave birth to hundreds of Daluo Taoist priests. From this, it could be seen that Feng Zichen's means were powerful. In terms of cultivating experts, even Dao ancestor Hong Jun couldn't compare to Feng Zichen. An ordinary connate spiritual treasure could increase the strength of Daluo Taoist priests by at least 3 times. If it was a powerful connate spiritual treasure, it could increase their strength by several times. From this, it could be seen that connate spiritual treasures were important to Daluo Taoist priests. The human tribe Taoist priests were at a disadvantage because they didn't have connate spiritual treasures. As a result, even though they had the most Daluo Taoist priests, they weren't the strongest in terms of power. Similarly, without the help of connate spiritual treasures, the human tribe Taoist priests were also having a harder time than others when facing the attacks of connate ferocious beasts. In the distance, Great Emperor Ziwei's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. He wanted to rummage through his treasure vault to see if he could find some connate spiritual treasures to help the human tribe Taoist priests. However, before Great Emperor Ziwei could take action, Saint Tai Ching suddenly sighed and said, "Sigh, they are the heroes of the primordial heroes. Alas, they are all heroes who guard the untainted world. How can I bear to watch them fight bare-handed? Let me do something for them." As he spoke, Saint Tai Ching waved his sleeve and took out dozens of connate spiritual treasures. He threw them at the human tribe Taoist priests. After him, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning also took out dozens of connate spiritual treasures expressionlessly and threw them to the human tribe Taoist priests. As for the Grand Master of Heaven, he had given away his treasures many times. No matter how rich he was about to run out. However, this time, he gritted his teeth and took out more than 10 connate spiritual treasures without hesitation. Although there weren't many of these connate spiritual treasures and they were far less than the connate spiritual treasures that Saint Tai Ching and the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning had taken out, they won in terms of quality. Chapter 785. The Grand Master of Heaven's connate spiritual treasures were all superior grade connate spiritual treasures, except for a few. The Tai Ching Saint and the Primeval Lord of Heaven had taken out many connate spiritual treasures, but most of them were mid-grade and low-grade. In terms of value, they were not as valuable as the Grand Master of Heaven's connate spiritual treasures. It was no wonder that the Grand Master of Heaven felt the pinch. He had really lost a lot of money this time. The 3 pure ones had taken out a total of 180 connate spiritual treasures. With the help of these treasures, the connate Tao masters of the human race would have at least 1 connate spiritual treasure each. However, this was not the end. Amidst the chaos, a ray of light suddenly flashed. It covered the sky and covered the entire immortal dragon city. Then, hundreds of connate spiritual treasures fell like raindrops, falling into the hands of the connate Taoist priests who did not have any connate spiritual treasures. Hundreds of connate spiritual treasures were distributed without even blinking. Only Dao ancestor Hong Jun could do this in the Eldritch world. It was the old man himself who had given a connate spirit treasure to those connate Dao masters who did not have one. In this way, everyone had a connate spiritual treasure. Apart from that, a ball of Shenhuang origin fell and floated above the immortal dragon city, releasing endless Shenhuang creation qi to heal the injured connate Taoist priests. With the help of Dao ancestor Hong Jun, the Eldritch world's tiredness was swept away, and they once again faced the connate ferocious beasts in peak condition. Endless Abhijna turned into divine light, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of connate ferocious beasts at the level of Taoist priests were killed. However, it was useless. The connate ferocious beasts seemed to be endless. No matter how many connate Taoist priests were killed, there was no sign of them decreasing. In fact, there were more and more of them. They could not be killed. The chaos around them had been dyed red, but the connate ferocious beasts were still endless. Gradually, the Khanate Taoist priests who had returned to their peak after absorbing the Xianhuang creation qi were exhausted again, and a trace of fatigue appeared on their faces. Why? Why were there so many Xiantian ferocious beasts? The answer was in the depths of the chaos, where the chaos fiend god was hiding. There were 9 huge placentas throbbing continuously as if they were breathing. Every time they throbbed, large amounts of chaotic qi would be devoured. Then, with a flash of chaotic divine light, a large number of primordial ferocious beasts were born from the 9 placentas. They roared and rushed towards the untainted land. It was because of these 9 placentas that they were constantly producing primordial ferocious beasts. That was why they could not kill all of them and constantly attack the untainted land. If he did not destroy the 9 chaos placentas, the primordial world would definitely lose this battle. At this moment, although the untainted world gradually realized that something was wrong, they had yet to determine the real reason for all this. They could only try their best to strengthen the strength of their Xiantian Taoist priests, so that they could resist the attack of the Xiantian beasts. However, as time went by, the gap between the enemies and themselves became wider and wider. Gradually, the Xiantian Taoist priests showed signs of being injured again. Fortunately, with the Xianhuang origin, those injured Xiantian Taoist priests could be saved in time. However, although the chaotic qi was endless, the Xianhuang origin was not. When the Xianhuang origin was exhausted, it would be inevitable that the untainted land would suffer casualties. Alas! In the human emperor palace, Feng Zichen sighed heavily. Seeing the actions of the 3 pure ones, he could not help but feel ashamed. In order to protect the untainted land, the 3 pure ones could put aside their prejudices to help the human tribe. Why did he still have prejudice? Could it be that he was not as good as the 3 pure ones? Thinking of this, Feng Zichen no longer hesitated. He gradually activated the blood altar and began to collect the qi of the Xiantian Taoist priests in the untainted land as the basis for their resurrection. Fellow Taoists, don't resist. At the same time, Feng Zichen did not forget to secretly transmit a message to the Taoist priests in the immortal Dragon City, informing them of the function of the blood altar and telling them not to resist the power of the blood altar. After knowing the existence of the blood altar and its function, the Xiantian Taoist priests in the immortal Dragon City were naturally overjoyed. With the existence of this treasure, they did not have to fear death and could be resurrected at any time. With a backup plan, the Xiantian Taoist priests no longer had any scruples. They fought fiercely with the Xiantian beasts without fear of death. Anyway, they would not die. Who was afraid of who? The 3 pure ones and the others could not help but have a strange expression when they learned that Feng Zichen had such a treasure as the blood altar. Since the blood altar could resurrect the dead, who had Feng Zichen used it to resurrect over the years? Based on this, Feng Zichen had a terrifying power in his hands. These doubts filled the minds of the people, causing their fear of Feng Zichen to rise to another level. However, at this moment, it was more important to pay attention to the battle ahead. At this moment, they did not have the time to investigate what Feng Zichen had done with the blood altar all these years. These things could only be buried in the bottom of their hearts for the time being. They would deal with it after defeating the Chaos Demon God. With the blood altar, the Xiantian Taoist priests in the untainted world started to become fearless like the Xiantian beasts. For this reason, the battle became more and more intense. The flesh and blood of the Xiantian beasts were covered with chaos and tightly entangled with the chaotic qi, emitting a demonic bloody light. The blood altar was desperately devouring the flesh and blood of the Xiantian beasts to transform it into the power needed to resurrect the Xiantian Taoist priests. This was a virtuous cycle. The more Xiantian Taoist priests killed the Xiantian beasts, the more times they could be resurrected after they died, and the faster they could recover their power. At the same time, the 3 pure ones, the first origin of origin, and many powerful divines were not idle. They took out their treasures, including the Xiantian origin filled with Taoist sense, Xiantian divine materials shining with spiritual light, Xiantian divine fruits with overwhelming spiritual qi, and so on. In short, there were all kinds of treasures. They were all Xiantian treasures that could help people reach the sky in a single bound and contained amazing power. After taking out their treasures, these big shots did not hesitate to crush them into the purest origin of heaven and earth and pour it into the black-yellow origin to strengthen its power and continue to support the Xiantian Taoist priests. On the other side, in the depths of the chaos beyond the sky, the purple cloud palace trembled violently and emitted endless divine light. It formed a huge black vortex around it and tried its best to devour the surrounding chaos chi. This was Taoist ancestor Hong Jun's action. He urged the Purple Cloud Palace to devour the chaos chi and transform it into the black-yellow origin. In the boundless starry sky, Zhouxing was also trembling. The Star River cosmic light formation was running automatically, absorbing the chaos chi from all directions and refining it into the purest Xiantian origin. At this moment, all the powerful divines were doing their best to help the Xiantian Taoist priests and help them guard the untainted land. Time. Just like that, the minutes and seconds passed. In the human emperor palace, Feng Zichen, who had pretended to be seriously injured and did not participate in the battle, was staring at the Xiantian beasts with a serious face, trying to find the key to the problem. It was not Feng Zichen's style to pin his hopes on the Xiantian Taoist priests. What a joke! Were they, the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, dead? The vast untainted land actually needed a group of Xiantian Taoist priests to protect it. Wasn't that funny? The untainted land did not need the Xiantian Taoist priests to protect it. At the very least, before the primordial chaos experts such as Feng Zichen, 3 Pure Ones, and Tai died, it was not their turn to protect it. In the beginning, the untainted land was guarded by Taoist ancestor Hong Jun. When Taoist ancestor Hong Jun could not protect it, there were still 3 Pure Ones, 2 sages of the West, Goddess Hutu, Nuwa, Feng Zichen, Tai, and the others. After all these people fell, it was the turn of the Xiantian Taoist priests. Now, everyone was still there and had not taken action. The untainted land was far from the time of life and death. It was not the turn of the Xiantian Taoist priests to risk their lives. Now, they did not look like they were risking their lives. If they were really at the critical moment of life and death, how could they be so leisurely and have so many great mediums to bless them? It was more appropriate to say that they were risking their lives than risking their lives. Moreover, it was not Feng Zichen's style to pin his hopes on others. It was believed that not only Feng Zichen thought so, but also the rest of the people. However, unlike Feng Zichen, 3 Pure Ones and the other 8 people had been exposed to the sight of the Chaos Demon Gods. They had been stared at by them all the time. Even if they had some ideas, it was not easy for them to take action. However, Feng Zichen was different. In the eyes of everyone, he was now in a state of serious injury and dying. Therefore, he did not participate in this battle. The Chaos Demon Gods did not pay attention to him. And this gave Feng Zichen a chance to take action secretly. Quietly, Feng Zichen left the human emperor palace and came to the chaos beyond the sky. After looking around and making sure that no one was paying attention to him, Feng Zichen quietly disappeared and traced the direction of the innate ferocious beasts. With Feng Zichen's speed, even in the chaos, he could travel hundreds of millions of miles in the blink of an eye. It was meaningless to surpass the speed of light. This was because any concept would become blurry under his power, and everything would have to follow the rules that he had set. Therefore, Feng Zichen soon came to the source of the innate ferocious beasts, where the 9 chaos placentas were. I see. No wonder the innate ferocious beasts can't be killed. The roots are all here. Looking at the 9 chaos placentas in front of him that were continuously creating innate ferocious beasts, Feng Zichen's eyes could not help but flash with a wisp of light. What was a treasure? This was it. As long as he could get his hands on the chaos placentas, why would he need to capture innate ferocious beasts alive? Couldn't he just create them with this thing? By then, he could have as many innate ferocious beasts as he wanted. Wouldn't that be invincible? However, looking at the 9 chaos demon gods standing behind the 9 chaos placentas, Feng Zichen forcibly suppressed his thoughts. It was better not to act rashly and alert the enemy. Otherwise, it would be difficult to obtain these chaos placentas. Silently remembering everything here, Feng Zichen quietly left. However, he did not return to the human emperor palace. Instead, he quietly came to the side of the 9 people. Fellow Taoists, look! Hiding in the dark, Feng Zichen transmitted the images he had seen in the depths of the chaos to the 9 people through divine thought. Suddenly receiving Feng Zichen's message, the 9 people were surprised, but they did not show it on their faces. They pretended as if nothing had happened and watched all the images he sent. No wonder those innate ferocious beasts can't be killed. It turns out that these 9 chaos placentas are continuously creating innate ferocious beasts. The chaos demon god's methods are really impressive. he can actually create innate Taoist priests in batches, as expected of someone who once competed with Father God. After watching the images sent by Feng Zichen, everyone sighed in their hearts. Then, the Grand Pure One sent a voice transmission to Feng Zichen expressionlessly. Since Taoist Gaochen has discovered the problem, what should we do? Just as the Grand Pure One was sending a voice transmission, an inexplicable force descended in the void, forming a strange world. Each of them pinched a trace of divine thought of the 10 people. In the strange world, an extraordinary figure sat cross-legged in the middle. As soon as the divine thought incarnations of the 10 people arrived, they immediately bowed to the figure and said, "Greetings, Tao Ancestor." This world was condensed by the Tao Ancestor with the power of the heavenly Tao. It was used for communication and could definitely hide from the Chaos Demon God senses. Waving his hand to get everyone to stand up, Tao Ancestor Hong Jun asked, "Everyone has already seen through the conspiracy of the Chaos Demon God. What should we do?" As soon as Tao Ancestor finished speaking, Tai immediately replied resolutely, "Kill them. Kill the 9 Chaos Demon Gods as quickly as possible. Only in this way can we destroy their plan. Otherwise, with the endless innate ferocious beasts, it will be very difficult for us to win this battle." After Tai finished speaking, the others did not say anything, but judging from their expressions, they obviously agreed with his words. Now, killing the Chaos Demon God was indeed the best way. However, since they wanted to kill the Chaos Demon God, they had to face a realistic problem. That was, the Chaos Demon God was now watching them closely. Once they took action, the Chaos Demon God would definitely be alerted. In that case, it would not be so easy to kill the Chaos Demon God. Only by catching them off guard could they possibly kill the Chaos Demon God. If they were prepared, it would be easy to defeat them, but it would be difficult to kill them. If they could not kill the Chaos Demon God, they would be in big trouble. For a moment, everyone was a little hesitant, not knowing if they should carry out the plan to kill the leader. Fortunately, they were all decisive people. After weighing the pros and cons for a short while, they made a decision in their hearts. Tai took out the Bell of Chaos and handed it to Feng Zichen. He said, "Now that you are out of the sight of the Chaos Demon God, I'll have to trouble you to bring my Dharma treasure to the Chaos Demon God." Chapter 786. After receiving the Bell of Chaos, Feng Zichen roughly understood what Dong Huang Tai meant. Due to the Chaos Fiend celestial surveillance, Tai could not go to the depths of the chaos to avoid alerting the enemy. However, he could let Feng Zichen, who was not in the Chaos Fiend celestial sight, bring his Dharma treasures to the Chaos Fiend celestial. At their level of strength, their Dharma treasures had basically been refined to the point where they were indistinguishable from themselves. Therefore, taking the Bell of Chaos to the depths of the chaos was basically the same as taking Dong Huang Tai to the depths of the chaos. Once the war broke out, Dong Huang Tai could use the Bell of Chaos to cross the endless chaos and directly come to the vicinity of the Bell of Chaos. In this way, he could catch the Chaos Fiend Celestial off guard. After Dong Huang Tai, the rest of the people, such as the 3 Pure Ones, gave Feng Zichen the Taiji diagram, the Panga banner, and the Khanate Dharma treasures, the 4 immortal slaying swords. The 2 saints of the West gave Feng Zichen the supreme grade Khanate merit numinous treasures, the Eastern Cyan treasured lotus flag, and the 12th grade golden lotus of merit. Nuwa, goddess Hutu, and great emperor Ziwei gave Feng Zichen the Khanate supreme treasures, the cauldron of heaven and earth, the disc of 6 paths of reincarnation, and the Khanate supreme treasure, the Zhouxing diagram. Even Tao ancestor Hong Jun took out the god-slaying spear with a smile and gave it to Feng Zichen, asking him to take it to the depths of the Chaos Fiend Celestial. Looking at the 7 or 8 Khanate supreme treasures in front of him, Feng Zichen was speechless. Unfortunately, these treasures were not for him, but for him to take them to the depths of the Chaos Fiend Celestial to be a courier. Otherwise, with these Khanate supreme treasures in his hand, Feng Zichen would be invincible in the primitive world. Gaochen will definitely not disappoint you, fellow Taoists. Forcibly suppressing the greed in his heart, Feng Zichen waved his sleeve and put away the Khanate supreme treasures. Then, he left the spiritual space and went to the depths of the Chaos Fiend Celestial. Sigh. He had no choice but to suppress his evil thoughts. Since everyone was so confident in handing over their treasures to Feng Zichen, it was obvious that they all had a backup plan and were not afraid that he would secretly tamper with them. If Feng Zichen really attacked these Khanate supreme treasures, they might be activated at the same time and attack him together. Kiske. At such a close distance, Feng Zichen would not be able to withstand the simultaneous attacks of at least 5 primordial cardinal treasures. This was because there was a backup plan left behind by Dao ancestor Hongjun. Carrying those pre-world supreme treasures, Feng Zichen carefully concealed himself and approached the 9 chaos placentas. Feng Zichen quietly poked his head out to take a look. He discovered that the 9 Chaos Fiend Celestials were guarding the Chaos Placenta one by one, and could not find a chance to attack. After thinking for a while, Feng Zichen gave up the idea of placing the Khanate Supreme Treasures beside the Chaos Placenta. Instead, he retreated to the side and began to set up. Feng Zichen first took out the God-killing spear, the Dharma treasure given to him by Dao ancestor Hongjun. Speaking of the God-killing spear, Feng Zichen could not help but feel a little angry. This was the #1 killing supreme treasure in the untainted land. He and Haotian had joined forces and risked their lives to snatch it from demon ancestor Rahu and suppressed it in the Purple Cloud Palace. However, Dao ancestor Hongjun did not say a word after obtaining this supreme treasure. He did not even give him and Haotian any compensation. Well, Dao ancestor Hongjun was quite fair in this regard. He did not give Feng Zichen, an outsider, nor did he give Haotian, one of his own, any benefits. He was black-hearted. A Khanate supreme treasure was black-hearted without any compensation. No wonder he could become a Dao ancestor. Feng Zichen still needed some time to practice his shamelessness. Feng Zichen muttered as he took out the god-killing spear. Then, he spent some effort to disturb the back of the Chaos Demon Celestial and placed the god-killing spear there. This was the west side of the 9 Chaos Demon Celestial, which was the back of the Chaos Demon Celestial. Feng Zichen placed the god-killing spear there for a reason. Dao ancestor Hongjun was the strongest combat power on his side. Once he made a move, he had to achieve the effect of changing the situation with one blow. Therefore, it was obviously not appropriate to let Dao ancestor Hongjun make a move directly. Only by putting him at the back and attacking the Chaos Demon Celestial could he achieve the greatest result. Moreover, if the 3 Pure Ones or Feng Zichen, Tai Yi, and the others made a move, the Chaos Demon Celestial would definitely disdain to escape. Even if he was no match for them, he would fight with them before leaving. However, if Dao ancestor Hongjun were to make a move, the 9 Chaos Demon Celestial would probably escape without thinking. Wasn't it courting death to fight with Dao ancestor Hongjun in the untainted world? Moreover, although Dao ancestor Hongjun did not say it explicitly, Feng Zichen could still feel that the Dao ancestor Hongjun who had communicated with them previously was not his true body, but just an incarnation. Why did Feng Zichen have such a feeling? Because the aura of the Dao ancestor was not right. In the past, when Feng Zichen saw Dao ancestor Hongjun, he would feel an irresistible pressure from him. However, this time, although he also felt pressure from Dao ancestor Hongjun, it was far less than before. The feeling that the Dao ancestor gave him was not like Daluo Jinxian, but more like primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Therefore, Feng Zichen concluded that the Dao ancestor was definitely not Dao ancestor Hongjuan's true body, but his incarnation. His strength was probably at the peak of primordial chaos, between the 10th and 12th level. As for where was Dao ancestor Hongjuan's true body? According to Feng Zichen's deduction, he should have been blocked by the powerful Chaos Demon Celestial. Otherwise, it was impossible for Dao ancestor Hongjun to not appear in person for such a big matter. If Dao ancestor Hongjuan's true body had really come, there would be no need to scheme. With a slap, he would be able to seriously injure the 9 Chaos Demon Celestial, even if he did not completely destroy them. Therefore, what appeared in front of everyone was definitely not Dao ancestor Hongjuan's true body, but his incarnation. It was also because of this that no one suggested that Dao ancestor Hongjun kill the 9 Chaos Demon Celestial when they were communicating just now. However, the Dao ancestor did not come in person, but only in his incarnation. Even so, the strength of a peak primordial chaos expert was much stronger than them. It could be said to be a great killing weapon. Since it was a great killing weapon, it had to be used at the most critical moment. It was best to use it for a sneak attack. Just as Feng Zichen had guessed, at this moment, Dao ancestor Hongjun was sitting cross-legged at the junction of the outer chaos and the outer chaos. He was looking at a white-robed and white-browed old man across the sky. The old man was the first primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian in the untainted land. He was one of the top 10 spiritual roots in the untainted land, the primordial hollow willow, ancestor Yang Mei. At the same time, he was also a space demon celestial whose strength was enough to rank in the top 3 among the 3,000 chaos demon celestial. He could be said to be the top figure in the world, one of the strongest creatures under the Great Tao. Fortunately, ancestor Yang Mei's strength had not recovered to its peak state. Otherwise, if he wanted to destroy the untainted land, no one in the untainted land could stop him. Unless Pangu came back to life. Even so, Tao ancestor Hongjun had to be careful when ancestor Yang Mei came to the outer chaos in person. He abandoned everything and came in front of him. In the face of such a figure, it was not too much to be cautious. Because Tao ancestor Hongjun knew that without the help of the great Tao, he was no match for Yang Mei. This had long been verified. Brother Yang Mei, didn't you go to the depths of the chaos to comprehend the great Tao? Why do you still come to the mortal world and intervene in the battle between the chaos demon celestial and the untainted land? Tao ancestor Hongjun looked at ancestor Yang Mei and asked in confusion. He was indeed puzzled. When they parted in the chaos last time, ancestor Yang Mei had already said that he had settled the karma between him and the untainted land. He would go to the depths of the chaos to cultivate and not care about the affairs of the world. But this time, why did he come out again? Did he change his mind and plan to participate in the battle between the Chaos Demon Celestial and the Untainted Land? Tao ancestor Hongjun could not help but worry about this. Ancestor Yang Mei was too strong. He was an eternal existence with qualifications. His strength was enough to affect the balance between the two sides. Therefore, his attitude was very important. On the opposite side, ancestor Yang Mei was silent for a while before he replied, "I have to come." Ancestor Yang Mei was also very helpless. In order not to get involved in the mess between the Chaos Demon Celestial and the Untainted Land, he hid in the deepest part of the chaos. But unfortunately, he did not hide deep enough and was found by the Chaos Demon Celestial. Ancestor Yang Mei found it hard to refuse the pleading of his former companions. Therefore he appeared here. But whether ancestor Yang Mei came here because he could not resist the pleading of the Chaos Demon Celestial as he said or because of something else, it was not something that outsiders could know. Alas! Tao ancestor Hongjun sighed helplessly opposite ancestor Yang Mei. No matter what the reason was, as long as he was here, he could not leave this place. Whether the untainted land could survive this disaster depended on Feng Zichen and the others. After putting away the god-slaying spear, Feng Zichen went to the northwest of the 9 Chaos Demon Celestial and put the cauldron of heaven and earth there. Well, Goddess Nuwa will attack the Chaos Demon Celestial from the northwest. After the northwest it was the north. Feng Zichen put the Bell of Chaos there and let Dong Huang Tai attack the Chaos Demon Celestial from the north. After that, it was the northeast. Feng Zichen put the 4 immortal slaying swords there and let Tong Tian attack the Chaos Demon Celestial from there. Next it was the east, the most dangerous place, right in front of the Chaos Demon Celestial. Attacking the Chaos Demon Celestial from there would undoubtedly be the greatest pressure. Therefore, Feng Zichen put the Tai Ching Sage, the leader of the saints, in charge of this place and left the Taiji painting, the ultimate treasure of creation. The reason was very simple. Among the 10 primordial chaos experts, the Tai Ching Sage was the strongest. That was the most dangerous place. Who else could take it? The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. In the southeast, Feng Zichen left the Pangu banner and handed it to Heavenly Lord Yuanshi. In the south, Feng Zichen left the Zhouxing painting and handed it to Great Emperor Ziwei. In the southwest, Feng Zichen left the 12th grade Virtuous Golden Lotus and handed it to Saint Zhuan Ti. Above the Chaos Demon Celestial, Feng Zichen left the mark of the 6 paths of reincarnation disc of the Chaos Supreme Treasure and let Goddess Hutu attack from there. Below, Feng Zichen left the Eastern Cyan treasured lotus flag and handed it to Saint Zhuan Yin. In this way, there were people in charge of the 10 directions of the 9 Chaos Demon Celestial. The 10 of them joined forces and completely blocked their escape route and also sealed their vitality. As long as everyone acted fast enough, there was no possibility of letting the Chaos Demon Celestial escape. This was called ambushing from all directions and cutting off all vitality. As for Feng Zichen himself, he silently came to the side of the Zhouxing painting and planned to join forces with Great Emperor Ziwei to summon the Pangu Dharma form and launch the strongest attack. After arranging everything, Feng Zichen calculated the right time and suddenly activated the 10 supreme treasures. In an instant, there was a burst of brilliance in the chaos, and 9 dazzling divine lights rose. Within the divine lights, 10 supreme treasures with immense power rose slowly, surrounded by endless Taoist rhymes. Boom! Almost at the same time, the 10 supreme treasures were activated and launched their strongest attack toward the 9 chaos demons celestial who were surrounded in the middle. Boom! Boom! Under this unparalleled power, the chaos was collapsing, and the great Tao was becoming blurry. Concepts were also changing, and everything was being distorted. A will of certain death rippled and wrapped around the 9 chaos demons celestial as if it was announcing their end. The moment the 10 supreme treasures were activated, the 9 chaos demons celestial knew something was wrong. They did not have the thought of fighting back. Their first thought was to escape. The other party had obviously come prepared, and it was unwise to rashly start a war with them. It was better to preserve their useful bodies and wait for the future. Unfortunately, Feng Zichen was fully prepared this time and would definitely not give them a chance to escape. While the 10 supreme treasures were attacking, their power was also condensing and linking with each other to form the connate 10 directions formation. It sealed off all directions and blocked the escape route of the chaos demon celestial. Since they could not escape, they could only fight back. The 9 chaos demons celestial reacted quickly. Seeing that they could not escape, they immediately joined forces and activated their special ability to summon the will of chaos to resist the attack. Boom! In the boundless aura, a mighty will emerged and easily blocked the joint attack of the 10 supreme treasures. However, before the 9 chaos demons celestial had a chance to escape, the second attack came. Whoosh! 10 rays of divine light flashed, and Tao ancestor Hongjun and the other 9 crossed the endless chaos. Each of them activated their own treasures and charged toward the chaos demon celestial. Boom! After the attack, a terrifying wave erupted and destroyed all the chaos in the surroundings. 5 of the 9 chaos placentas were directly destroyed. The newly born connate ferocious beast was directly turned into ashes. Cough, cough. When all the waves subsided, the 9 chaos demon celestial gradually appeared. They had finally blocked the attack. However, they had also paid a huge price for this. The summoned will of chaos was shattered. In other words, their strongest defense was gone. At this moment, everyone had accumulated their power and counterattacked with a third and final attack. It was a sure kill attack. Whoosh! A ray of light flashed, and Feng Zichen and Great Emperor Ziwei merged into one, summoning the Panga Dharma form. On the other side, the 3 pure ones stood together and connected their auras. They evolved the Dharma form of the past, present, and future, and their power increased by more than 10 times. P.S. Sigh, I still hope that the pirated readers can support me. You can read the advertisement for free. It's available at the end of every chapter. It's free. In addition, I'm asking for next month's votes. I still hope to collect 100 monthly votes this month. Chapter 787. Behind the 9 chaos demon gods, where Tao ancestor Hongjun was, his avatar suddenly began to burn. In the blink of an eye, it turned into an extremely powerful force that poured into the god-slaying spear in his hand. Boom! At this moment, the god-slaying spear's body emitted an unprecedented light, and a shocking murderous aura spread out. Even people as strong as Feng Zichen and the others felt their souls tremble. It was said that primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian was immortal and indestructible, but in front of the god-slaying spear, everyone felt the taste of death, as if the god-slaying spear could kill them completely. Or maybe it was just an illusion. No matter what, the god-slaying spear was extremely powerful now. Perhaps it did not have the power to kill primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian completely, but it could definitely kill primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian easily. Otherwise, the god-slaying spear would not have given everyone such a feeling. In the other directions, Tai, Hutu, Nuwa, and the others also revealed their trump cards and launched their strongest attacks toward the 9 chaos demon gods. Boom! The first to attack was the 3 pure ones. The 3 kinds of power that represented the essence of the universe surged out of their bodies and swept toward the 9 chaos demon gods. Rumble! The power of primordial chaos erupted, and in an instant, the entire process of the universe's birth and death was derived. The power of the universe's creation and the power of the universe's end were like monstrous waves, vast and mighty, hitting the 9 Chaos Demon Gods. In just an instant, all their defenses were destroyed. At this moment, Feng Zichen and Great Emperor Ziwei joined forces to attack. The immortal light of Pangu erupted from their bodies and tore the bodies of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods apart, causing their blood to splatter in the chaos. Clang! After Feng Zichen and Great Emperor Ziwei attacked, the Bell of Chaos, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Disc, the 12th Grade Virtuous Golden Lotus, and the Eastern Scion Treasured Lotus Flag, 5 powerful supreme treasures, attacked at the same time. Rumble! An unimaginable power erupted, shattering everything into nothingness. After suffering such a heavy blow, the Chaos Demon God, whose physical body had already been torn apart, was completely shattered and exploded. He turned into countless pieces of broken bones and flesh that scattered in the chaos beyond the sky. Even so, the 9 Chaos Demon Gods were still alive. No, it should be said that such an attack could only severely injure them, but it would not harm their foundation. This was because after reaching the level of the Daluo Taoist priests, although the physical body was still important, it was no longer the foundation. Innate indestructible true spirit was the foundation of everything. As long as the innate indestructible true spirit was fine, no matter how serious the injury, it would be able to recover in the shortest time possible. At this moment, the chaos indestructible true spirits of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods were hidden in their broken flesh. It could be a drop of blood, a piece of bone, or even a piece of flesh. In short, they were waiting for an opportunity to escape when no one was paying attention. The bodies of the Chaos Demon Gods were unbelievably huge, more than hundreds of millions of feet long. After they were shattered, they turned into countless pieces of flesh and broken bones. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to find the true spirits of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods hidden in these fragments. However, there was no need for them to search, because the fatal blow from their side had arrived. An astonishing blood-red light bloomed from the god-slaying spear, illuminating the past, the present, and the future. Whoosh! With a flash of blood-red light, the chaos suddenly disintegrated, and everything returned to nothingness in an instant. The god-slaying spear had already arrived beside the broken bodies of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods with unparalleled killing power. Whoosh! Hundreds of millions of blood-red light bloomed from the god-slaying spear and swept out. In an instant, it shrouded the place and turned it into a blood-red world. The incarnation of Tao ancestor Hong Jun, a peerless expert of the 11th heaven of Hunyuan realm, had sacrificed his own body to the god-slaying spear in exchange for the spear. The moment the blood-red light burst out, Feng Zichen and the others quickly retreated to the side, for fear that they would be affected by the slightest bit of the blood-red light. After a while, the blood-red light faded, and the chaos gradually returned to normal. The power of the god-slaying spear had been exhausted, and it was lying quietly in the chaos beyond the heavens. The flesh and blood of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods had not been destroyed. They still existed there, emitting astonishing waves of energy. However, the spirituality contained in their flesh and blood had completely disappeared. Obviously, the attack of the god-slaying spear had completely destroyed the true spirits of the 9 Chaos Demon Gods. Good stuff. Looking at the floating mass of Chaos Demon Gods' flesh and blood, everyone was very tempted. This was good stuff. If it was done properly, it would not be difficult to refine a few connate cardinal treasures. However, no one dared to take the Chaos Demon Gods' flesh. Although they were tempted, no one dared to take it. This was because the flesh and blood of the Chaos Demon Gods already had a use. Rumble! At this moment, in the depths of the chaos, in the unknown void, there was a burst of supreme Tao light. It was purple and lustrous, full of nobility and majesty. Following this, a Tao wheel with a missing corner slowly descended from the sky. In an instant, the chaos shook, and a supreme pressure spread out. It was cold and noble, like Mount Buzhou pressing down on everyone's hearts, making it hard for them to breathe. Greetings to the heavenly way! Seeing the Tao wheel with a missing corner descend, everyone bowed slightly and greeted it. The heavenly way! The missing corner of the Tao wheel was the heavenly way. It had descended for the first time in a true sense. The Tao wheel was the body of the heavenly way. As for why it was missing a corner, it meant that the heavenly way was incomplete and incomplete. The missing corner was the escaped one, the opportunity for all living beings to transcend. Without the escaped one, the heavenly way would be perfect, and all living beings in the eldritch world would be under the rule of the heavenly way. This was a very terrifying thing because it meant that from the moment of one's birth, one's future, one's achievements, and one's death had all been decided by the heavenly Tao. Everything would go according to the script that the heavenly way had planned for them. Life after life, there would never be a chance to transcend. Panga was merciful and did not want to see this scene. At the beginning of the creation of the world, he gave the heavenly way an axe, making it no longer perfect and the escaped one. It was the escaped one that gave all living beings a chance to transcend. If not, the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian would not have been born in the Eldritch world. The primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian was a transcendent. He had transcended the river of destiny, the river of time and space, and the Eldritch world. He was the existence that the heavenly way did not want to see the most. After the heavenly way descended, it did not look at the crowd and only looked at the flesh and blood of the chaos demon gods. At the moment, the flesh and blood of the 9 chaos demon gods were the most important to the heavenly way. As long as it devoured them and absorbed their origins, it would definitely bring unimaginable benefits to the Eldritch world. It was not impossible to restore the glory of the ancient times. Compared to the glorious future of the Eldritch world, Feng Zichen and the other 8 people around the heavenly way seemed insignificant. After looking up and down at the flesh and blood of the chaos demon gods, the heavenly way suddenly rotated and an extremely powerful suction force was emitted. It wrapped the flesh and blood of the chaos demon gods and brought them into the Tao wheel of the heavenly way. Meanwhile, Feng Zichen and the rest were quietly watching the scene. The reason why they did not touch the flesh and blood of the chaos demon gods was that they knew that the flesh and blood had been reserved by the heavenly way. If they dared to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, the heavenly way would not mind telling them what the ruler of the Eldritch world was. As for the fact that the heavenly way did not take them seriously, Feng Zichen and the others had long been used to it. The heavenly way was just a ruthless program. Apart from the Eldritch world, there was nothing else in its eyes. Any existence, whether strong or weak, was the same in its eyes. They were all ants. Even the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian was just a slightly stronger ant in the eyes of the heavenly way. In addition, wasn't it wrong to expect a program to treat you differently? If the heavenly way had its own preferences one day and suddenly favored Feng Zichen and the others, their first reaction would not be joy, but fear. Good heavens, ruthless and desireless. If the fair and just heavenly way suddenly had its own preferences, wouldn't it be a bad thing? From then on, the order would no longer exist, and the Eldritch world would not be far from destruction. In addition, the heavenly way would not allow this to happen. Although the heavenly way was subservient to the heavenly way, it could also check and balance the heavenly way. Once the heavenly way gave birth to intelligence, the heavenly way would be able to manifest and do its best to wipe out the intelligence of the heavenly way, thus maintaining the order of the Eldritch world. While the heavenly way was devouring the flesh and blood of the chaos demon god, Feng Zichen and the others were not idle. They stared at the heavenly way and tried hard to brand its figure in their hearts. What a joke! It was the heavenly way, the combination of all the laws in the Eldritch world. Its whole body was the truth of the heavenly way. Any rune on its body could evolve into a connate Tao scripture and create a Daluo Taoist priest. The body of the heavenly way was the greatest opportunity in the Eldritch world. If one could completely comprehend it, not to mention the Wuji Daluo Jingxian, even the creation realm, which was above the Wuji realm, could be achieved. Now, the body of the heavenly way had come in person, which could be said to be the greatest opportunity in the Eldritch world. Since everyone was fated to see it, they naturally tried their best to brand the figure of the heavenly way Tao wheel in their hearts. They remembered as much as they could, and they could not waste this opportunity. This opportunity was much more precious than the Tao ancestors' preaching. It was a pity that those powerful mediums in the Eldritch world were not here now. Otherwise, if they were fated to see the heavenly way Tao wheel, they would not be far away from becoming the origin Daluo Jingxian. Alas! What a pity! In Feng Zichen's sea of consciousness, Hongmeng Daozhong vibrated rapidly, and the Hongmeng Qi surged crazily, constantly imitating the appearance of the heavenly way Tao wheel, trying to record everything about him. Just when Hongmeng Daozhong was branding the figure of the heavenly way Tao wheel, Feng Zichen suddenly woke up from his enlightenment. Then, he quietly looked around. Seeing that the rest of the people were immersed in enlightenment, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he carefully reached out his hand and grabbed at the only remaining embryo of chaos in the depths of the chaos beyond the heavens. It had to be said that Feng Zichen was lucky. At this point in the battle, even the real spirit of the Chaos Demon God was destroyed. But among the 9 Chaos embryos, one was saved. Although Feng Zichen deliberately protected it, it was more due to luck. It had to be said that the Chaos Fruit was really Feng Zichen's blessed land. In the Chaos, he could easily obtain benefits, much easier than in the Eldritch world. With the Chaos Embryo, he would not lack primordial ferocious beasts in the future. After looking at the Chaos Embryo for a while, Feng Zichen silently put it away. Then, he transmitted a voice message to the Taoist priests of the human clan, ordering them to start capturing the primordial ferocious beasts alive. Without the Chaos Embryo, the primordial ferocious beasts could no longer become powerful, and it would undoubtedly be much easier for them to deal with them. This gave the Taoist priests of the human clan the possibility to capture the primordial ferocious beasts alive. After that, Feng Zichen took a look at the Way of Heaven. Seeing that it would not leave for a while, he notified the great mediums on his side. For example, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, Ancestor Mingi, and the others quickly came here to see if they could get some opportunities. If they were fast enough, they might be able to see the Way of Heaven for the last time. This was undoubtedly a great benefit for them, who were about to break through and become Daluo Jingxian of the origin. Perhaps, the final step they were missing would be broken through because of this. Alas, the opportunity had been told to them. As for whether they could come or not, it would depend on their own luck. Feng Zichen had done his best. Next, it was up to heaven. Just as Feng Zichen was observing the Way of Heaven in the chaos beyond the sky, the war in the Eldritch world was coming to an end. Taoist Dong Hua, Taoist Ziyun, and God personally led the army and attacked all the way. Soon, they reached the gate of the ancestral land of the human race. Here the 3 of them, who had been unstoppable all the way, finally encountered an obstacle. It was an unprecedented obstacle. No matter how they attacked, they could not move forward at all. In fact, after several failed sieges, they suffered heavy losses instead. All the losses before added up were not as much as the losses they suffered here. The main forces of the human race were all gathered here, determined to fight to the death. How could the 3 rebel armies be a match for them? The so-called heavy losses were the result of the human race's side holding back. Otherwise, the human race's army could directly flatten the 3 rebel armies. However, the human race did not do so. They were waiting for the return of the Connate Taoist priests, waiting for their majesty to give the order for the final battle. In this way, they would take action and flatten the rebel armies in one fell swoop. Now, since His Majesty asked them to hold back, it was not a bad idea for them to stay here and play with the rebel armies. To be honest, these days of defending the city, the human race here had really opened their eyes. In order to break through the city as soon as possible, the 3 rebel armies had used all kinds of methods. All kinds of strange supernatural powers and capable people could be said to be endless. Those various methods made the human race here exclaim in joy. Chapter 788. He felt that he had never seen so many mysterious magical powers in his life. It was really an eye-opener. After a long battle, the 3 of them were anxious and even paid a huge price to invite capable people from all over to help them. Unfortunately, no matter how mysterious their magical powers were or how strange their magic treasures were, they could not cross the barrier formed by the power of all spirits. The power of all spirits was one of the few powers in this world that was born after birth but was superior to the innate. It was extremely mysterious. As long as there were enough of them, even the will of the heavenly Tao could be reversed, let alone other powers. After using all kinds of methods, they still could not break into the ancestral land of the human race. Taoist Dong Hua, Taoist Purple Cloud, and Deity gritted their teeth and decided to take the risk. The 3 of them used their magical powers to wrap the destiny of the human race that they had accumulated over the years around their bodies and rushed toward the ancestral land of the human race. Over the years, the 3 of them had accumulated a lot of destiny of the human race along the way. Including the 20% that Saint Tai Ching had taken away, they had about 50% in total. Taoist Dong Hua and Taoist Purple Cloud each had 20%, while Deity had 10%. With the destiny of the human race on their bodies, the 3 of them suddenly became ethereal, as if they were in harmony with the heavenly Tao. They were everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Whoosh! The 3 of them moved and rushed toward the power of all spirits. They saw that the power of all spirits that had previously made the three rebel armies helpless like a heavenly canopy seemed to not exist in front of the three of them at this moment, allowing them to pass through it easily. The destiny of the human race trembled slightly, and the power of all spirits sensed it and automatically opened an opening for the three of them to pass through. The soldiers guarding the city did not notice anything unusual about what was happening here. This was normal. The three of them were saged to be experts, and with the support of the destiny of the human race, their strength had long reached the realm of great masters. As for the soldiers guarding the city, the highest cultivation level was only a half-step Zenith Heaven Dao Master. It would be strange if they could find the traces of Taoist Donghua and the other two. After entering the ancestral land of the human clan, Taoist Donghua and the other two headed straight for the human emperor palace. They dared to attack the human emperor's palace not because they were brave, but because they had received news from their backers that Feng Zichen was not in the human emperor's palace. If that was not the case, they would not have dared to attack the human emperor's palace even if they had the guts to do so. Wouldn't that be suicide? It had been some time since the battle to kill the demon god of chaos, and the news should have been sent back. Therefore, it was not surprising that the three of them received news about Feng Zichen. After learning that Feng Zichen wasn't in the human emperor palace, the three of them immediately understood that this was an opportunity. It was a chance to completely conquer the human race. Gradually, an extremely bold idea appeared in the minds of the three people. If they succeeded, the result of this battle would be clear. It was this thought that prompted the three of them to come here. And what they had to do was, shwa. In a few leaps, the three of them had already arrived outside the human emperor's palace. Then, without hesitation, they activated their strongest magic and blasted it at the gate of the human emperor's palace. Open! As soon as they finished speaking, endless brilliance gushed out from their hands and drowned the gate of the human emperor's palace. Then, a crack gradually appeared on the unshakable gate. Let's go in! Seeing this scene, the three of them shook their bodies and turned into extremely tiny rays of light, turning into the crack on the gate of the human emperor's palace. At this time, the commotion caused by Taoist Donghua and the other two attacking the gate of the human emperor's palace had alarmed many people. Oh no, there's an enemy attack! Quick, protect the emperor! The human clan elites near the human emperor's palace were alarmed by the huge commotion. They hurriedly walked out of the encampment and quickly formed the human clan's inheritance formation, the chaotic formation, to surround the human emperor's palace. At this time, even the most thick-skinned people realized that something was wrong. The human emperor did not react at all when the enemy had already reached the gate of the human emperor's palace. Could it be that something had really happened to the human emperor? Inexplicably, a haze appeared in everyone's hearts, and the atmosphere here also became oppressive. Then, there was a period of speechless silence. No one wanted to go in and take a look. Because there was no need. If the human emperor was here, there was no need for them to make a move. If the human emperor was not here, even if they went in, they would not be a match for the enemy. So they just waited here. Waited for the result. In the human emperor's palace, what were Taoist Donghua and the other two doing? Feng Zichen was not in the human emperor's palace. So what was their purpose in entering the palace? After the three of them entered the human emperor's palace, they looked around and found the place where Feng Zichen usually sat cross-legged, then rushed there. Shua, after arriving there, Taoist Ziyun's hand shook, and a gorgeous robe appeared in his hand. If someone was here, they would find that the gorgeous robe in Taoist Ziyun's hand was exactly the same as the one Feng Zichen usually wore. However, compared with Feng Zichen's robe, the one in Taoist Ziyun's hand looked much shabbier, as if it had just gone through a great battle, with many places worn out. Moreover, there was a force of death that could not be dissipated, wrapped around the robe, adding a bit of tragedy to it. What are you waiting for? Why don't you do it? Seeing that the two were still in a daze after he took out the robe, Taoist Ziyun urged with some dissatisfaction. Hearing this, Taoist Donghua and Deity came to their senses. Each took out a primordial spirit treasure, and threw it at the place where Feng Zichen was sitting cross-legged. Taoist Donghua took out a mid-grade primordial spirit treasure with star attribute, and Deity took out a mid-grade primordial spirit treasure innate divine sword. The two took out their magic treasures and had no intention of destroying this place. Their purpose was very simple, which was to melt these two primordial spirit treasures. As soon as the two primordial spirit treasures left their hands, they began to disintegrate in the air, emitting sparkling Tao light and blending into the surrounding heaven and earth. They were transforming into the Tao. Under the power of Taoist Donghua and deity, the two primordial spirit treasures were passively entering the stage of transforming into the Tao. Whoosh! When the two primordial spirit treasures landed on Feng Zichen's couch, they had already entered the final stage of transforming into a mass of light, completely blending into heaven and earth, and never to be seen again. At this moment, Taoist Ziyun threw out the robe that resembled Feng Zichen's, which happened to fall between the two primordial spirit treasures. After that, the three fell into silence, as if they were suppressing something or brewing something. At a certain moment, the three turned around at the same time and walked out of the human emperor palace. Everyone, the tyrant has fallen. He died under the heavenly jewel, and there is nothing left of him. Walking out of the human emperor palace, the three said to the crowd outside the palace in a slightly heavy tone. Hearing this, the crowd naturally didn't believe it, but they remained silent. Seeing that the crowd didn't believe it, the three smiled indifferently, turned around, opened the door of the human emperor palace, and stepped aside to let the crowd see everything in the palace. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the crowd looked up and saw Feng Zichen's couch in the center of the hall. With this look, the crowd was shocked, and then they were filled with endless sorrow. The figure that was originally sitting on the couch had disappeared without a trace. All that was left was an emperor's robe that was wrapped in a dense, deathly still power. In addition to this imperial robe, the aura of the primordial Tao of stars and the primordial Tao of swords reverberated around the couch, each exuding a strong sense of sorrow. All of this indicated a very frightening thing. Ren Huang. He had really fallen. But how was this possible? Confusion and sorrow kept reverberating in the hearts of the crowd. Taoist Ziyun and the other two didn't know what the crowd was thinking, and they didn't care. They knew the truth and knew that Feng Zichen was fine. Naturally, they couldn't empathize with the crowd and understand their thoughts. At the moment, Taoist Ziyun and the other two had more important things to do. That was to completely confirm the fact that Feng Zichen had fallen, and completely quell the wild thoughts of the human tribe before Feng Zichen arrived, and seize his position as the human emperor. In this way, even if Feng Zichen returned, it would be too late, and he wouldn't be able to do anything to them. In order to create the illusion that Feng Zichen was dead, the three of them paid a huge price. In fact, the two middle-grade primordial spiritual treasures of the path transformation were nothing at all. The real highlight was still on that gorgeous robe. Feng Zichen was such a fastidious person. Nothing he wore was lower than a superior-grade primordial spiritual treasure. The origin of the emperor's robe on his body was unknown, but it was indeed a supreme-grade primordial spiritual treasure. In order to make it look real, the three of them really imitated a supreme-grade primordial spiritual treasure. In order to refine this emperor's robe, the three of them basically lost everything. Well, it was naturally difficult for ordinary people to refine primordial spiritual treasures, but chaos demon gods could. Even if it was a seriously injured chaos demon god, as long as he was willing to pay the price, he could even refine primordial spiritual treasures for you to see. Everyone, you have also seen that the tyrant had lost his way and provoked the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. In the end, even the heavens couldn't stand it anymore and sent down divine punishment to kill him. Throughout history, he was the first supreme to die under divine punishment. His sins were greater than the 4 seas and greater than Kunlun Mountain. So, are you still going to be stubborn and help the tyrant? Shouts that came from the bottom of their hearts came out from the mouths of the three of them. Looking at their excited expressions, they spoke as if they themselves believed in it. When the human elites below heard this, they were about to speak, but they suddenly realized that their bodies were out of control, as if they were being controlled by strangers. They said words that made them furious. The three kings are right. The tyrant had sinned against the heavens and deserved to die. We really shouldn't be stubborn and die for that tyrant. Now that the three kings have descended with heavenly soldiers, it's a great opportunity for us to achieve our great ambitions. Why don't we join the three kings and help them reorganize the country and return peace to the human race? Taoist Ziyun and the other two were so powerful that the elites of the human tribe could not resist them at all. Their minds were easily taken over by them, and they uttered those insincere words. It could be said that as long as the three of them did not remove their magical powers, these human elites would always lose themselves and serve the three kings to death. Alas, if it weren't for the fact that they were worried about the backlash of the human race's fate, the three of them wouldn't have been so gentle.
They just used their magical powers to control the minds of the human elites instead of directly erasing their intelligence and refining them into puppets that only knew how to kill. With the betrayal of the human elites, the ancestral land of the human race quickly fell. The three rebel armies broke through the blockade of the power of all spirits, entered the ancestral land of the human race, and took over everything here. Very good, very good.
My fruit is about to ripen. Just as the three of them were harvesting the fruits of victory, in the depths of the void, Feng Zichen deliberately left a divine thought behind, silently watching everything. Alas, the three of them were pitiful. They thought that they had succeeded, but they didn't know that everything they were doing now was secretly facilitated by Feng Zichen. From the moment Taoist Dong Hua and the other two absorbed the human race's fate, they had been defeated. The human race's fate that Feng Zichen deliberately divided had long been tampered with. Once it merged with humans, it would spontaneously absorb the surrounding tribulation aura. In other words, every time the three of them conquered a divine city, the tribulation aura on their bodies would also increase as their fate increased. The three of them couldn't detect the increase of the tribulation aura because it was all hidden by the human race's fate. Unless their control of the human race's fate could surpass Feng Zichen's, they would never detect the slightest abnormality. When the three of them attacked the ancestral land of the human race, the tribulation aura had already entered their bodies and they had lost their minds. To put it simply, their intelligence had begun to decrease. They did things that they would never do in the past without considering the consequences at all. At this time, the three of them's perception of danger had dropped to the freezing point. This gave Feng Zichen a chance to plot against them. This led to the scene where the three of them created the illusion that Feng Zichen was dead. Now, Taoist Dong Hua and the other two had attacked the ancestral land of the human race, and the human race's fate in their bodies had skyrocketed again by 5%. This also meant that the tribulation aura on their bodies had become stronger. In the view of Feng Zichen's divine mind, the tribulation aura had already entered the bodies of the three of them and blinded their true spirits. They were not far from death.
It was estimated that it wouldn't be long before the three of them fought, and then all three of them would be defeated and injured.
At that time, Feng Zichen could come out and take advantage of the situation. As for now, it was better to watch the show and think of a way to stop the saints from returning. At this time, the five saints couldn't see the appearance of Taoist Dong Hua and Taoist Ziyun. Otherwise, Feng Zichen's plan would be completely exposed. How could the situation of the two of them be hidden from the saints' eyes? After the three of them entered the ancestral land of the human race, they each occupied a place according to the previous agreement and began to cultivate and recuperate. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.